guests, including our submitters. Thank you very much for taking your time to be with us today. We're obviously not re-adjourning, because that's not the right word, but we're coming together after our adjournment yesterday afternoon, having heard from a handful of submitters, and we'll listen to our final 3 today. But I will pass over to Graham Pollard just to do a brief introduction, and then we'll move on. Thank you, Graham.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, we're reconvening and continuing with the hearings of submissions on the annual plan 2020-21. We have 3 presentations this morning. These are all concerned with community funding. We're beginning with Harriet Dixon and Robin Parker from the Cambridge Community House Trust. It seems that there's been a concerted effort by the Trust Board to make sure that you're fully aware of the services that they provide, and to put their requests in front of you. So as you'll have seen, there've been a number of submissions from the board and supporting organisations. We've got Julie Epps, who many of you will know, from the Cambridge Committee of Social Services, and Ray Miller from St Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Te Awamutu. So those are the 3 submissions you'll be hearing from today, and then we'll be moving into deliberations. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I interrupt just for a moment? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, yesterday, I believe that even though we're not hearing a submission from the Cambridge Museum Trust and the Cambridge Heritage Society, both which are linked to the museum, that I should have expressed a conflict of interest with one of the submissions, which, although we're not hearing from, is still within the overall annual plan submission. So I'd like to register that conflict of interest now, if I may.
Yeah, thank you for that, Roger. I was going to raise it before we entered deliberations, but thank you for raising it now. If we could note that.
Through the chair, also, can I just same as Roger? I'm not directly linked. I still do chair the Historical Trust Board, so same for myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Mike. And I take it we can note those. Thank you, Jenny. I was going to raise it before, as I say, we entered deliberations, but now's as good a time as any. Thanks very much. Now, as Graham mentioned, we have Harriet with us. So, Harriet, if you'd like to commence your submission, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Thanks. Really lovely to see you all. I think I've met most of you possibly over the last 18 months as I've been General Manager of Cambridge Community House. I think most of you know the organisation within Cambridge, which has been running since 1985 and is the main service in Cambridge providing family and social services for the area. We've been really creating a hub for anybody who can come in, even off the street. We take walk-ins who are in need, so people can come to the house for support. There's no judgment here, and really we just provide that full wraparound service for people. So our aim is to walk alongside people and families to make sure that they meet their goals and enable them to get back in control of their lives. And we provide many services here, as I'm sure you're aware. We have, in my submission, sort of outlined all the different services that we provide for free for the families of Cambridge. Something that I probably didn't mention is that we work with a lot of homeless people. Even during lockdown, I had a couple of one couple and one older gentleman who was homeless during this time, one living in a tent and one just sleeping on the park bench. So, you know, those are the types of things that we're helping with in Cambridge too, to make sure that there aren't people sleeping on the streets of Cambridge. We don't have a homeless problem because we're helping those people. And we just wrap ourselves around them and make sure that we can enable them to get the support that they need through work and income. We get them into short-term emergency accommodation, which is difficult in Cambridge, but we try our best to get them into that short-term accommodation and then into that long-term accommodation to make sure they've got that security over the longer term, which is what they need. And they need that support because quite often they're just faced with a totally overwhelming situation. And they're quite often at risk as well of suicide and all the rest of it because they can't cope with what they're doing. I certainly feel really privileged to be in the position that I am at the head of the house here, you know, to implement the services that we provide. It's great for me to be able to do this and to speak for our community to you guys today, just to say, you know, that there are many families in need in Cambridge. We're helping 42 families a week at the moment with food. And that's a surprise to many people that there are that many people in need, and that's growing on a daily basis at the moment. I mean, with COVID-19 that we've just had, we're expecting an explosion of people who are facing redundancy and also their own businesses going under, people who've not been in a financially unstable position before and don't know where to seek help. And so we're making sure that we're putting ourselves out into the community so that everybody knows that they can come to us for that support and help to get back on their feet. And it's about enabling people. We're not here to be a crutch for people to lean on forever. That's not the idea. The idea is that they come to us and that we support them and that we walk alongside them and enable them to take control of their financial situation and get back on their feet. It's about breaking down that overwhelm, reducing the risk of suicide for them, and being able to get them back on their feet in a way that they want to. Demand for our services has just exploded. Over the last 4 years, it has doubled, and yet our funding hasn't. And so we are struggling to each year to be able to maintain our services. We've had a loss for the last 2 years running. This year, we've managed to turn that around slightly, and I feel that we're going to be a bit more of an even keel. But with COVID-19 coming along, I am worried, to be honest with you, about funding going forward. A lot of our regular funders at the moment are not funding anybody. We've had lots of conversations over the last couple of months with my regular funders who I've got really good relationships with, and no, they've closed their books. They're not taking anybody on for funding at the moment, and that includes our local organisations like the Rotary and Lions, who have been great supporters of us. You know, they're just such wonderful people, but they don't have the income coming in, and so they can't give the money out. And that's the story across quite a lot of the usual funders that we talk to. And so, yeah, so we're certainly seeing the need, the growth is there, and we are, looking at next year at potentially, you know, an issue with funding for our organisation. And we want to continue to provide these services. I really see Cambridge Community House as one of the biggest players in the recovery from COVID-19 for Cambridge and across the wider region as well. You know, we are that place where people can come to, like I said, for support and be able to enable people to get back on their feet, back into work. You know, we support people with that as well. We really will take anybody's needs into account. It's all based upon what those families' needs are. And we will reach out to other organisations if we don't do what we are, the services ourselves, and we reach out to other organisations to provide the support and services that they need. I'd like to just pass over to Robin. We've got Carolyn Casey and Robin Parker with us today, who are long-term board members of Cambridge Community House and really strong supporters of what we do. Carolyn Casey is our chair, and Robin Parker has been on part of the trustees for a long time now. But Robin's got a few things that she would like to say as well. I think that it would be valid to hear from her now. Robin, do you want to unmute your microphone and talk? I think, yeah, here she comes.
It's gone back. That's better. I was going to say it's gone back onto me.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
You can. Oh, good morning. My name's Robin Parker, and Carolyn Casey don't know us. I just would like to add to, from a different angle, my submission itself is really focusing on a capital grant of $50,000, which is our shortfall for our expansion to our building, which we need. I just would like to raise the point that we are on land that's set aside for community purposes, and you would all know Waipa District Council's purpose is to partner with the community in promoting the well-being of its people and the empowerment of the community whilst providing opportunity equally and with an efficient service. So I would like the council to include in the rationale for granting capital funding applied in the past.
I think you're cutting in and out a little bit there, Robin.
We sought from council other than increase the legislation fund grants, which were.
Is it just me, or is everybody experiencing problems? I'm hearing Robin.
Yeah,
okay, must be Robin's connection. Yeah.
Robin, turn your video off because that would help.
Oh, sorry. My what?
Turn your video off because that would help with the streaming because your bandwidth is low. Your internet connection is not very good.
Oh, okay. I'm out in the country.
Explains it.
I think Robin's trying to talk to the fact that we are building an extension at the moment to the community house, and this has been building now since February, and it's going great guns. We've actually got the frames up, and we're looking like we're going to have a really good house come September. This has been needed because at the moment we're working out of cabins on site, which are not great because they're cold in winter and they're hot in summer. So we're doing that at the moment, and we're really lucky to have the land rented from council. It's absolutely amazing to have this position in town. People know where they are, they know where to come to. So it's wonderful from that point of view. And yeah, we are looking for funding to finish off the project. We've had an unfortunate setback where we've had an extra $50,000 added on to the cost, which is like 10% of the build cost, which is huge for us, and we just don't have funding for it. That was due to some of the firewall regulations, due to it being an external boundary around the house, even though it's on council land. So we've had to adjust the plans for that, which is fine, but it's brought about an additional cost for us. And I think we were hoping that being council land and always going to be a council building because it's on your land, there's no chance of moving this building. It is now had concrete footings put in around the firewall, so there's no chance of moving it off the land. That it will always be a community building. I'm hoping it will always be the community house, but certainly it will always be a building for the community to use. And having the expansion there means that we can also bring we'll have space for our services, which are expanding, which is great, but we'll also have additional rooms for other community groups to come and use. So Women's Refuge have already expressed an interest in wanting to use one of our rooms to talk to women who are in crisis. And there are other organisations as well who currently don't have a presence in Cambridge because they don't have a space to be. And we're certainly really interested in collaborating with them to bring those services to Cambridge on a more permanent basis and a more regular basis by having them in the community house alongside us. So yeah, certainly looking forward to having that building space finished. But yes, unfortunately, we are a bit short on the funding side.
Okay.
Robin, you able? Sorry, Robin, you able to talk now, or are you still having problems? I think she's still having issues.
Okay, look, no, I think we.
Are you able to hear?
No, we can't hear you.
No, look, I think,
sorry.
Yeah, look, that's all right, Robin. Look, I think Harriet's covered it off pretty squarely, and your submission's pretty clear too, in respect of that request for 50,000. So thank you for that. Now, I just need to ask, are there any questions of Harriet or even Robin if we're able to connect with her? But I think that might be a bit dodgy right now. Jim.
Can you hear me now?
It's just cutting in and out. Cutting in and out, Robin.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Am I able to present a written question later in the day? I was just wondering. I'll see what I can do here.
In the meantime, Jim, have you a question for Harriet?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Harriet,
Sorry,
thanks for all the work that you're doing. And look, it's not really a question, it's just in terms of council's point of view, I know the facilities that you're working out of, and absolutely you need the additional space. And look, it's a huge task that you've got, and unfortunately growing with the COVID situation. So look, I totally support what you're doing. And look, from a Cambridge perspective and the wider district, we're really short on social services. Central government seem to just run a blanket ruler over the whole Waipa district and say we've got a low socio-deprivation index, therefore we don't need any help. So the only way we're going to do this is if council gets in behind you. So look, thanks for all your work, and we'll consider this along with everything else. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Now, Roger, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a question, but first of all, I'd just like to support the work that you do. You're actually on the ground there and you're making a difference in Cambridge. So thank you very much for the services that you provide to our community. You mentioned that some of your traditional funding sources had actually dried up. I'm a member of Rotary, so I know that we're just not having our major funding projects. Give us an indication of your operational funding from those sources. How much are you missing out on this year?
Yeah, we would have expected Race to Race funds, the event that was planned for March or April, whenever it was, to have raised around $20,000 for us. Lions, you would have expected probably another $5,000 to $10,000 from those guys now, and then from areas like Pub Charity and other organisations like that, probably another 20,000 by now, to be honest with you. So all up, probably about 60,000 short.
And that's mostly operational funding?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Now, does anybody have another question? Claire, so you have got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. And look, Harriet, I'm really impressed with what you've achieved, and yeah, hats off to all your team, yeah, for the work that you do there in Cambridge. I mean, the question I have is understanding more about why you're not getting that extra support from central government, because, you know, I hear their messaging, you know, that they want to make sure that people are supported through this, but, you know, your story is that they're not doing it. So, what's your experience with, you know, the reception you're getting from central government?
Yeah, it's a lot of great talk, and I'm quite disappointed, really. You know, the money that they were putting into mental health, not seen a cent of it. Really haven't, and it's so disappointing. It really is, because like we are at the coalface. We are making really good differences to people's lives. We're stopping suicide. We're making people more functional, better members of society, you know, through the addiction service, and yet we're not seeing an increase in any of the funding for that. They are talking about an increase in the family violence sector, but I feel that is really much a sort of ambulance at the bottom of the cliff scenario. And yet they're about to take away our funding at the end of December for our proactive violence-free Waipa work, which is where we actually educate in schools as well, with programs like Loves Me Not on healthy relationships, how to spot abuse. And it's not just, we're not talking just physical abuse here, we're talking about financial abuse, verbal abuse, you know, that emotional abuse, everything that takes a toll on a person and ruins who they are and makes them unable to function in life. And, you know, those are the sort of things that should be funded, and it looks like it's going to stop in December, and that's all I've heard so far, and that there's not going to be any funding for it. Other things like our financial mentoring service, there's murmurings at the moment that there might be some extra money put into it. Whether that reaches Cambridge is another thing, because it's nationwide. I have to say, in this region, we are a little bit thought of as, you know, we've got enough money in our community to support what we're doing, and we don't need government support. And yet I don't see it as that. You know, I see a community just like any other, with extreme needs, just like any other. It's just unfortunate that, you know, we've got a wonderful image, which is great for the town, don't get me wrong, but from a funding perspective, I kind of get up against that a lot, with barriers, you know, facing the fact that people think we're an affluent town.
Okay. Marcus, did you have a question there? You're muted.
I've got a couple of questions. First off, do you do combined work with Kāinga Araha to share resources amongst Waipa with Te Amuru and Cambridge communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we do. We work really closely with Kane and his team over there. Yes, we do. We have regular meetings, because it's really important. Our community should have the choice as well, whether they work in one community and live in another. They should have the choice of where they go and seek help from, you know, what's most convenient for them. So yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're working really closely with all of the social services in across the Waipa region, even Otrahunga as well. Work closely with Deb and her team over there. Yeah.
And my second question is, Do you get support from council at all, like from the community boards, or would you prefer to get regular support from the community boards? Like, and same with, well, I know you can't speak on behalf of Kainga'a and Te Amuru, but would that help and go some way towards?
We have applied to the community boards. We were really great. We received $1,000 from Cambridge Community Board last year towards our build, and $2,000 from the Te Amu Community Board as well. And I've just made an application today for help with the violence-free wiper work, because the funding for that is going to cease. So yeah, I'm definitely applying to those guys and that group of people regularly as well. Yes.
Oh, so but what about for operating costs for the operating expenses for your businesses? Like if you got a regular amount from our community boards, would that go some way in helping you in the future?
I don't mind where the funding comes from. I really don't mind where the funding comes from. If we get the funding from our, the community board or from the council, it's wonderful. Yeah. Regular funding. Yeah, regular funding that we can count on. That's the problem.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Harriet. Liz, I think you've got your hand up there.
Yeah, no, thanks. Hey, Harriet, obviously, yeah, we've known each other for a little while now, but just want to say, you guys are extremely well organised and well connected with our community. And I think that your expansion is a signal of just how organised you are and how influential you are and how far you've got. One of the things I guess I'm interested in is around social housing. And your thoughts on that while we have councillors all in one place. I'm aware, and you're aware, that there's some pension housing units going up right beside you, but I'm interested in your views on the social issues and whether there's more that we can be doing to help you with emergency housing. That's all.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to bring that up today or not. It wasn't part of my submission because operation funding and the building fund is critical for us right now. But yes, you're absolutely right. There is no emergency housing in Cambridge. It's incredibly hard to get any short-term, emergency housing for anybody. I think I looked in during the COVID-19 because places didn't have anybody staying with them, so they're actually keen for the income. So we managed to get, like I said, a couple of homeless people, families that we were working with, into that short-term accommodation, and now they've got into long-term accommodation. But that's through private rentals. They've not been able to get any sort of social housing. The list for that is long, and the number of houses is short. I work really closely with Brian for Housing New Zealand, and he talks and he says that the turnover is just incredibly low in Cambridge. We don't have people moving out of social housing, like I think other areas do. People tend to stay put in Cambridge, and I can't blame them. It's a lovely place to live, and I think more housing stock, being able to have some housing that maybe, you and I have talked about it before, some housing that maybe we could oversee the rental of, so that we could put families into even short term, whilst we then find them longer term private accommodation. All those things are things that I'd be happy to talk about and discuss with council as to how we can solve this problem long term, because we are going to end up with people living on the streets. In their cars. That's what people come to us all the time, sleeping in their cars, and that's no way to live for people. It's chronic. It's a chronic situation. It brings about mental health issues. It brings about physical illnesses, and that's no way for people. It actually puts more pressure on our health services and hospitals long term than it does to actually nip that in the bud and get people into long-term healthy housing.
Okay, thanks for that, Harriet. Roger, did you have one last comment to make there?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, it's a question. Harriet, it seems to me that you've got a 50,000 shortfall on your operational funding and a 50,000 shortfall on your building costs. If there's a limited pot of money, which comes first in your priority?
I think right now,
sorry to ask that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think right now we have to get that building done. We absolutely have to get that building finished. It's due to be finished in September. The builders that we're working with are really keen to get on with it. They've made fantastic progress, even with the 7 weeks that we've lost through COVID-19. They've actually made up time over the last couple of weeks. It's absolutely amazing the progress that they're making there. And he's a really socially conscious guy as well, the builder who we're working with, Kit Markin, Josh Jennings from Kit Markin. And so he's really helping us, and he's kept that cost down. He's donated, I think, $8,000 worth of his time and his team's time over this period to find a solution to that problem that we came across. But the outcome from it is a $51,000 bill. that we need to cover the costs of. Yeah, and I would really like to see that done so that we can actually move forward and have the space to expand our services into. I think that that's actually paramount right now.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Harriet, for that clarification. Look, I think I speak for everybody here when I say we really admire you and your organisation, and thank you enormously for the work you do. It is often thankless and obviously reasonably unsupported financially, but certainly it's much appreciated, you know, giving a voice and a support to people who are marginalised enormously. So thank you for that. And we have run a little over time, but I think we all appreciated your comments on social housing issues. So thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And I think we move now on then to our next submitter, which is Julie Epps from the Cambridge Committee of Social Services. And I'm sure she doesn't mind being slightly late on account of Harriet's issues to raise with us. So welcome, Julie, and please take it away.
Hi, it's lovely to be here and to see everybody. Lockdown seems to have been a long time, and yeah, it's nice to see people's faces. So thank you for this opportunity today to speak to this submission. So I'm here on behalf of Cambridge's Social Services Committee to support the Community Houses submission. So there's three things I wanted to add and on top of what we put into our written submission. The first one is something I noticed, which was there was a large number of other submitters who have also written in support of the community house. And I mean, that's great. That shows that there is this support for this wonderful organisation. We wrote the submission because we all know how important the community house is for the people of Cambridge from the experience of our committee. We've worked with Harriet and her team, and we know how hard they work, providing the wraparound services for our town. They're good at what they do and they get things done. My second point is that the community house is a real hub for the community, so people can go there. It's non-judgmental. They can walk in the door. They receive these services. It's a real hub. We're lucky to have it, and we need this hub to be strong for our community. As a hub, they're also very inclusive of other social services groups or our organisations. Where, as a committee of the social services, we're able to use the meeting room for our meeting, and other groups are as well. So it is a real hub. My third point is with COVID-19, it really hits home how important the community house is to our community. What we've observed is the community house are pivotal. They were pivotal during COVID. So on the front line, providing assistance to those in need. They did a huge amount of work, and a lot of it would have been unseen, doing food parcels, providing household items, organising emergency accommodation for people, and all on top of their normal services, doing the counselling, education, family violence support, the money mentoring. It's also important, and it all had to go on, although they did it out of their home offices and bedrooms and in lounges. They worked in with other organisations during COVID, so the Salvation Army Food Bank, Kaivolution, Food Together, the Cambridge Lions, who set up their food caravan with hot food, which is just amazing for our community. Also working with Civil Defence, and I know that they reached out on social media to our community who also donated lots of stuff that was needed and as it was needed. So we've got a lot to be proud of. They were really busy. I'm not sure when Harriet found any time to sleep. So with the predicted hardship from COVID, social services and the community houses social services they provide, they're going to be in higher demand now. And it's got personal. We all know of people who have already lost their jobs due to COVID, and it's affecting each and every one of us. It could be someone in our family, a friend, a neighbour. It's affecting everyone. These hardships are going to create extra pressures in families, whether it's financial, emotional or social. And without help for these families, there's also the potential for adverse flow-on effects in our community if behaviours spill over into the wider community. People are going to need help getting back on their feet, and the community house is vital for it. I think Harriet's got one of the toughest jobs in town, and it just got tougher. So in summary, from the Social Services Committee, what we're asking Council to consider is to help resource the community house to succeed, help them to do their job of helping others for the benefit of the individuals, their families, and for all our community. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Julie. That was a really well presented submission. I really appreciate it. Can I call for any questions or comments of Julie? Hazel.
Yes, thanks, Susan. Harriet, lovely to meet you. And I've been listening intently to what you've had to say, and the same for Robin. What background have you got? What professional background have you got that actually we know that this is safe guidance that you're giving to everybody? And where's the point? What do you do at a point when you think, hey, this is not for us, this needs to go to a particular service, and do you refer on? Yeah. And I'm linking this to some other positions that you know that we work in. So yes, that's where I'd like to know a bit more about.
All of our team, sorry Hazel, all of our team are really well trained. The fact that we have a free service doesn't mean that we have people who are just volunteers and not well, we do have some volunteers obviously, but it doesn't mean they're not qualified. Doesn't mean that they're not members of bodies that mean that their work is scrutinised, and they have peer supervision as well to make sure that their work is tip top. So we have our counsellors who are members of the New Zealand Counselling Association. They're all members of that. We have our alcohol and drug counsellor who's a DAPANS registered member. You know, and to be members of those organisations, yeah, your work is scrutinised, and you have to be a tip top, you know, in your profession. And they are all really well professionally, well trained. And they have ongoing training as well, and that's another additional cost for us as well. We have their membership costs each year, and we have their training costs each year, which, you know, they continue to do to make sure they keep up with the latest therapies, latest trends, etc. in care for people. Our financial mentors go through a rigorous set of training, which is over 7 weeks, and they get through the FinCap organisation, which is funded by MSD, Ministry of Social Development. And yeah, financial capabilities, FinCap, and yeah, they have rigorous training again, and they also have supervision before they're allowed to see clients by themselves, and they have ongoing peer supervision. So we have a team leader who is extremely experienced in financial mentoring. She's been doing it for years and years. Obviously herself has gone through the training and still goes on regular training courses, and she oversees what they do as a step-by-step basis. We have our own policies and procedures which make sure that we are kept safe, and also that our clients are kept safe. We're all police vetted, even volunteers within our organisation are police vetted to make sure that everybody's kept safe, and that, you know, each other is safe. Yeah, just we're all really well trained. Well, yeah, it's just because it's a free service. It's yeah. I think a lot of people probably have that perception that it's a free service, so therefore people just, you know, maybe give their time and are not well qualified. But to have the work that we do, yeah, everybody has to be really well qualified and have that supervision, like I said, and check in to make sure that their work is top. Yeah,
great. Thank you for that clarification, Harriet.
Yeah, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions for Julie at all? Liz, yes.
Hi, Julie. Hey, one of the things I guess that maybe some of the other councillors don't know, but when I started attending your meetings, I was really surprised at the number of different groups that you're connected with, like the social services, you know, monthly meetings that you hold actually connect a whole bunch of different community groups in Cambridge, and I didn't probably fully understand that. Can you just give us a quick rundown of those groups?
Yep. So basically, it is anybody who is involved in the social services. So the community house, it's the Cambridge Food Bank, which is run by the Salvation Army. It's the churches, the individual churches. It's the Cambridge Police, WINS, Women's Refuge, the Citizens Advice Bureau, Age Concern. I've probably missed a few, the Community Board. It's, yeah, Workbridge. we have a lot of members. So it's really good, and because by coming together, we know who we can talk to. We can ask questions at the meeting, but we also can make those connections that basically help the community. It's a great group, and any councillors would be welcome to come along to the meetings at all, if you're interested at all, to see what we do, or if you'd like to see our minutes, you'd be welcome to as well. Yeah, we meet monthly, and it's advocating, helping, supporting our social services in Cambridge.
Wonderful. Thanks for that clarification, Julie. A very broad collective of people there obviously produces results. Roger, do you have a question?
No, just a final statement. I think the comment has been that the provision of social services is a national central government issue. But the point is, if they don't do it, do we stand back and just let our community suffer because they're not doing it? So I really think we need to look seriously.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Mike, one last comment or question from you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Susan. Yeah, I guess just with the changing times, I know a lot of businesses and organisations in this community put their money towards sort of pet projects or clubs and that sort of thing, and have done that traditionally. But some of the ones I've been thinking about have been thinking differently, and rather than giving to some of the organisations that have been given to in the past, are thinking more of a social conscience. So it's just really good, Harriet, to hear this, and Robin. Maybe for some of us to go back to some of these people that are starting to think differently, and there'd be no better place in town for these organisations or businesses to maybe come in and have a chat with you. So I think probably each of us knows someone who we could go and get to knock on your door. Thank you. Great.
Look, thank you for that. And I hate to feel like I'm hurrying everybody on, but I'm just mindful of our time constraints. So thank you, Harriet, Robin, and Julie, all for your time and commitment to getting a submission, or a number of submissions before us today in respect of the Cambridge Community House and the associated services. It's been really impressive to hear the work that you do, and sad also to say that we actually have such a need out there, but wonderful to know that there are great people such as yourselves out there rising to the occasion. So many thanks, and we'll just move on now to our final submitter for the day, Ray Milner.
Tēnā koutou, kouta. Thank you for the opportunity to present in person an exciting development planned on Mutu Street by St Andrew's Church. It's a prime site on an arterial route into the town centre, an entranceway to the Te Amutu business community. This project is not about building a new church. It is multifunctional and a community-focused complex with all rooms under one roof. Before starting to design this building, we met with some members of this council, asking the questions, what does Te Amutu lack in facilities, and what would you like us to incorporate in the new building? We believe that we have listened, and as a consequence, incorporated a specific counselling room and a larger room to accommodate whānau or family counselling meetings. Also, we have elected to build a Category 3 rated building, thus strengthening community resilience by offering shelter and welfare in the event of an emergency. The construction of the complex is expected to take approximately 10 months and offers employment opportunities to local people and businesses, thus generating an economic spin-off to our local community. The project is consented and spade ready. Local businesses will be involved in the project. The facilities will allow Te Amutu to be profiled as an attractive place to visit and host a function or event generating an economic benefit to local businesses and services, bringing a positive impact on our community. The new facility will offer much greater use by being multi-purpose, be available 7 days a week, and provide a commercial kitchen for both business hire and for use by community groups. We have consulted with iwi leaders and received positive support and encouragement from them. We have a strong level of support for the project from our current community group users and others who see this project as a benefit to the well-being, vibrancy and connectedness of communities in Te Amutu and the wider district. We have raised over $800,000, and your investment in this multi-purpose and community-focused project will signal to other major funders your commitment and support of the project. Ora tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. Yeah, quite a significant project you've got in the making there. So well done. Have we any questions for Ray in respect of the St Andrews build or comments? Jim, you have your finger raised there.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I'm not quite sure how to do that politely, but hey, Ray, look, hey, thanks for your submission. I'm just really interested in, I suppose, in some ways, I'm not, it's almost the reverse of impeccable timing, trying to get this built during the COVID pandemic that's raging, but 800,000 already raised. What's the likelihood of getting just assuming for argument's sake, $1 million was forthcoming from council, there's still quite a shortfall. And we've already heard this morning that a lot of the funding agencies are just not investing at the moment. So what's the likelihood that the balance would be found?
Yes, we've had very encouraging discussions with Trust Waikato and with the Lotteries Board representative here for the Waikato Bay of Plenty. One was just yesterday when we had an update with them. And yeah, from that meeting, they're very interested to see what the outcome of our proposal is with the local council. So our applications to them are $500,000 each, and that will get us over the 3 million mark.
Jim, did you say something further there?
Oh yeah, I just said, sorry, I'm muted, but I just said thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Look, I have a question here. Unfortunately, Poto Davies is unable to, she's having technical issues as well. She's our iwi representative, and she has a question for you, Ray. She asks, will bar facilities be provided?
No.
No, okay, great. I think that clears that one up for her. Thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions? Claire, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, thanks. It's more of a comment though. I just wanted to say, Ray, that it's a really well prepared proposal. You've obviously put in a lot of work in checking what was needed in our community and taking that multifunctional view and trying to make sure that what is built will actually really lift, I suppose, the social wellbeing and cultural wellbeing of our area. So I just wanted to say thanks to the team for putting in all of that sort of groundwork to come up with this kind of proposal. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. Does anybody else have anything for Ray any further? Hazel.
Yes, thanks. Ray, great to hear you again. You know that that I have a great interest in the social services, and could you envisage your building as as a meeting place for the social services. I think what we need in Te Awamutu is a one connecting place that we've got our health and welfare committee, but it's maybe it goes in sometimes and maybe it doesn't. We want something a bit more positive, and I've been looking for that for quite some years now as to how we could actually pull all of our social services together and sing from the same hymn sheet for the whole town and our surrounding districts. Could you see that building as perhaps providing that, so there would be a permanent resident, someone permanent there from the social services who could take in all that information and also give that service to Te Awamutu?
Well, yes, we're open to discussions, Hazel, to what you have in mind, and perhaps I'd need to talk to you further just so that some idea of the space that you require and the timing. Well, sorry, not so much in timing, but the usage during the week. But yeah, we're open to ideas. And,
okay, thank you.
what your thoughts are.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, you have your hand up there, and then Liz.
So Ray, is just picking up on Jim's comment, is your feeling that if the council was in a position to give a sizable amount, that the two trusts that you mentioned would come in with the $500,000 each? Is that your sort of feeling?
That's the feeling I have, and I guess I'd go to a further extent. I'd be quite disappointed if they didn't come, with a significant amount towards the project, if the council was supporting it.
Thank you.
Hi, Ray. I'm presuming that the building we see behind you on the TV screen is the proposed building. Is that right?
Yes, Liz.
Very impressive building. Yes. Hey, I guess that this is a tough time. In terms of timing, it probably couldn't have gone worse for you in some ways. I've been involved in a few of these projects, and all I can say, and just want to sort of lend a hand and say to you, don't give up. This is always a long road. The funders, you're doing all the right things, ticking each one, off as you can, and yeah, just don't give up. I mean, I think this particular facility will be a huge asset to Te Awamutu. It's much needed and a great location for it as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. When you do hit those sort of slumps, because it can be tough going. That's for sure.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Wise words. Has anybody else got any questions or comments for Ray in respect of his project? No, it looks like we're all questioned out. Look, thank you very much, Ray, for your time and for the efforts that your parish has pulled together in trying to establish a pretty impressive facility in Te Awamutu. As Liz mentioned, it's not easy, but you're obviously got a bunch of good minds there, and you've got a pretty impressive project in the works. So thank you very much, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Now, you're welcome to stay, but if you like, you can go off on your merry way, as with the other submitters. We now move, I believe, into the deliberations phase of today's hearings. Just a couple of housekeeping matters. I don't know whether Graham wanted to tidy them off or whether I should, but firstly, we'll revisit the issues of potential conflicts of interest, which I think we tidied away Roger and Mike Pettit's one at the beginning of this session, but it's in relation to any other submissions that we received that we didn't hear in person. I'm not aware of there being any, but just thought I'd throw it out there. Oh, Phil, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just the Cambridge Neighbourhood Watch, the Safer Community Trust, I'm on that board as well.
Okay, if we can note those, Jenny, if that's at all possible. Okay, nobody else having any other conflicts? That's great. Listen, I thought procedurally, in terms of how we would deal with these submissions today, that rather than dealing with them in a chronological order, after discussion with the governance team, we decided it was probably best and more logical and efficient use of our time if we dealt with them by topic. And so as such, I'm kind of hoping we can all agree on working off Appendix 3, which relates, which groups all of our submissions by topic. And in this way, Graham's been able to indicate to the relative executive members and staff members for those subjects or issues to be here to help us in our deliberations should we need them. So I'm assuming everybody's comfortable with that approach. Graham, waving your arm around.
Yeah, just in terms of order that you might want to take these categories. I did try and put some kind of logical sequence into the ordering of them, but I noticed I put fees and charges right at the end, which is actually a financial one, and the other financial bits I put right at the top. So you might want to consider moving the fees and charges up. I see that Tony Quickfall is here, and he answered some of the questions that one of the submitters had yesterday, and he may well have some more information on that. So that might be an opportunity to move that one further up.
That is logical. That's a logical. I did have a little asterisk next to that one. I'm flexible in whichever ones we deal with first and second, but it makes sense to have those financial matters all grouped together. If everybody's comfortable with that, I think that's probably a good way forward. One other issue to raise is that a suggestion has been made that we may wish to defer any decision making on those with a financial component until we've seen the revised annual plan and have fully considered all the issues raised by submitters in the wider context. So that means delaying any decisions on those financial components until the 9th of June meeting. That's my understanding as a suggestion that has been made. Are we comfortable with that process and squaring away with the non-financial issues today and delay until we have a clearer picture around those revised annual plan financial components early next month? Roger.
That seems logical. No, I'm just saying that's a logical approach.
Yep. Yeah, good approach. Yep.
Yeah, we're all
happy with that. Great.
All right then. Those are my housekeeping issues to attend to. I think we've squared away everything, have we, Graham? And you're over there, the one now.
I think so, yes. Just another note that you will probably have noticed looking at Appendix 3 that I had also ordered them by the bigger categories first. So those were the ones that had the most submission points. So really around the submissions on the rates and the budgets, community funding, service delivery, which is the roads, the footpaths, the waters, community services, the submissions around libraries and parks and reserves and those kinds of services. And then we're into those that only have, I think, off the top of my head, 3 or 4, maybe 5 points each. So, and those are probably fairly similar points as well. So the quickest ones to get out of the way are probably at the bottom of the list. The biggies are the ones at the top.
Okay, all right. So would it be a better use of everybody's time? I'm thinking here of staff as well, to perhaps square away the easier, smaller issues first and deal with the gruntier, larger, more contentious issues later, or would you prefer it the other way around? I'm easy. I'll be led by what the committee would prefer in that respect. Anybody have an opinion on that?
Just happy with your suggestion, Susan. Just get the easy ones out the way. And
okay, Liz, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, as long as we can find it easily in our Appendix 3, I don't want to be jumping all over the place trying to find the right page. That's all.
Yeah, it's really tricky, because unfortunately, Zoom meetings aren't particularly helpful when it comes to hearings. I've actually got 3 screens going now. Yesterday I only had 2. So
yeah.
Hazel?
No, I'm just saying I find it really, really difficult to jump all over the place. But I think the order that you've sorted out is quite acceptable. If my memory's working right, I can actually remember what I've read and what's been said.
Great. Okay, well, let's launch into it. With that said, would it make sense, given as we touched on it yesterday and Tony Quickfall's here, should we shoot straight to the fees and charges matter? Is that doable for everybody? So this is Appendix 3 on page 43, I believe.
Oh gosh.
Tony gave a reasonably helpful steer yesterday. I wonder if you had any further questions of Tony or discussion around those issues of fees and charges, particularly with reference to the man from Pete McLaughlin's queries and some of the other issues in the submissions.
With your permission, I do have some further information around benchmarking that I whipped up last night just to validate my responses around the benchmarking, which was done earlier, but now I've gone back and done it. It paints a little bit of a different picture, so it might be worth taking you through that if you're happy with that.
Yeah, I think yes, please, Tony.
Sam, are you able to share that screen, please? Okay, so I'll just take you through this. So what we've got here is, I'll take you through it in the order that probably is the best way to explain it. So the columns labelled 1, that shows the YPAR fees and charges for the staff rates for 1920, so that's the current year, and 2021, which is what you're considering. The columns labelled 2 are comparable councils in the Waikato region, but also I've looked at Western Bay of Plenty, which is comparable in size, and also Tauranga City, just to compare that with Hamilton City. So this, as I said, this benchmarking was done early on when we went through the fees and charges review. I don't think it was done towards the end. I think what might have happened is some of the figures that we put forward might have changed a little bit. So that's number 1. Number 2, what I've then done under the columns labelled 3, so the first column on the left there is an averaging of all the councils. Oh, sorry, if you go back to columns 2, the problem I had in doing this was that Waikato and Taupo had their fees and charges publicly available for 2021 already. The other councils still have them shown as 1920, so we've got mixed years. So if you go back to columns 3, what I did first is averaged across all the councils. Then I made an assumption that for those councils that have not determined their 2021 fees and charges, I've assumed a 2% inflation rate there. Now it might be 1, might be 2, might be less, might be more, but just for purposes of comparison, that assumption is made. So column 4, I then went through the LAS consultants because we heard that I guess there was a query around how we compare with the private sector. I looked at 3 consultants in the Waipā district, predominantly surveying companies that had planners and engineers, and also looked at 2 in Hamilton because we are part of the Hamilton catchment. We are the highest growth council in the Waikato region, and I thought it was important just to provide that comparison with Hamilton because they do service this district as well. And so there's a range in there that you'll see. So what I thought might be most useful would be to look at our 2021 revised rates and compare with an average across all councils, including a 2% for inflation. So it's the green columns. If you work your way down those, there are some disparities. Overall, we do appear to be slightly higher than the average of all councils. But the point I make there is that the 1920 current fees and charges are also slightly higher. So you can work your way through those. The other part of the, I guess, puzzle is what is our target in terms of recovering fees and charges and how are we tracking? So if you go to the bottom of the spreadsheet, under the long-term plan financial policy, and this is what I was talking about yesterday, our underlying financial policy hasn't changed. So all we're looking at is the rates. So our current LTP financial policy says that for resource management, the target is to recover 45 to 70% of costs through fees and charges. For development and engineering, the target is 30 to 50%. I then did an analysis of year to March, which is the most recent report I could find, and the year-to-date actuals, we're tracking around 50% recovery for resource management and 37% recovery for development engineering. So the picture this tells is that while this year's fees and charges may be slightly higher than the average of all councils, our recovery is not at the high side. So we're actually recovering at the low end of what our target is. What that says to me is that we can tell the story that our rates are reasonable and fair, and that's the test that the RMA requires, or accurate and reasonable. Actual and reasonable. And I think if you look at our target for recovery and our actual recovery rates, we're not making a profit or a big surplus on that. So I think you can have a level of comfort that our rates, even though they may appear slightly higher, are not putting us into a big financial surplus situation. So that's all the information on the page. I'm happy if you want to work through it or look at it or deliberate on it later, but I thought it'd be useful to have that to inform the discussion.
Mm. Yeah, look, thanks for that, Tony. Does anybody have a question or query of Tony in respect of that chart in particular? Claire.
Thanks very much, Tony. It's great to get that chart, which, you know, we didn't have that when we were reading the submissions. That you use the term slightly higher for Waipa compared to the rest, but actually some of them are $20 an hour higher, which I think seems excessive to me. I would have expected larger city councils to have higher rates, so like Hamilton City, maybe Tauranga City. Yeah, so you know, we're higher than them significantly when you think about the hourly rate. And so I appreciate you going into the LTP policy and the recoveries. And so my question is, are we seeking to recover too many indirect costs? Because I think this was covered in the submission from Conswells that because we're a council, you know, we're not trying to make a profit. So it would be a reasonable expectation that our hourly rate would actually be a discount on the private sector. Okay, now the only way that we wouldn't be having a discount is if we are trying to recover our overheads as well, and a larger proportion of our overheads than a private company. And so I'd appreciate a bit more analysis on that, or you know, I suppose a full analysis on the financial policy and whether or not we're including more indirect costs than perhaps might not be anticipated through the RMA.
Oh, I haven't got those figures at me, but what I can say is under our fees and charges policy, we're entitled to claim for any actual and reasonable costs incurred for the direct costs. All the invoices that go out, we do use a timesheet system. So anyone who's tracking costs against consents that come in, and that applies to development engineering as well, they use a timesheet system. We've got a process in place where they are checked before they go out. And I've got a high level of confidence that we're not claiming what we're not entitled to. And in fact, often, as I indicated, we make a bit of a judgment call, and often we do discount the actual hours because we take a reasonable test as well, reasonableness test.
Graham, you've got a question there. Oh, sorry. Did you have any further to ask, Claire, on that?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the comments about that you do make a call, you know, on what's reasonable and fair. That part of the submission, though, was that the hours that are being charged do seem to be excessive as well for straightforward consents. I think they gave examples, you know, of 7 or 9 hours or something for something that they would have expected as be pretty straightforward for an engineer. And so, yeah, I guess I'd like a bit more investigation in that too.
So that may have been relating to 2 or 3 particular invoices that we had discussed with Cogswells. And there was one instance that we had to go back to the consultant who was processing to ask them to reduce their fees. We negotiated that and we reviewed our invoices. So while there were 1 or 2 exceptions, I'm quite confident that our invoicing process takes into account the actual hours that we would normally expect as well.
Okay, yeah, so you've looked into those instances.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, well, thanks very much.
Thanks for that. Now, Graham, did you have your hand
Yeah,
up?
thanks. Yeah, Tony, the bottom figures on your recovery, if you look into it, probably indicate that you could well be doing the consents for less time, because you're not excessively recovering charges. You're in the middle to low, if you know what I mean. So it might be a slightly higher hour, but it'd be interesting to know what that average is compared with some other parameters in the other councils. That's all.
Andrew, did you have a question there?
Yeah, well, not so much a question. Look, this is a legitimate query from an interested ratepayer, but it's our council staff have just told us that they're comfortable that they're applying the rules they're allowed to recover charges, and we need to understand that, of course, the more fees that are recovered, the less rates we have to charge our ratepayers. So there's always that balance, and our rates are going to be coming up for the whole process comes up for review in the natural order of things. And yeah, I think we just need to say this is noted. It's going to be looked at in the due course. Any exceptions are dealt with as they come up, as Tony's just explained, and let's move on.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Ken, you're waving your hand around there. You're muted, Ken.
Yes, sorry, I was just going to say that probably right now in year 3 of an LTP is probably not the best time of looking at this. So we're obviously over the next year or so we are putting together an LTP. As part of that process, we review our revenue and finance policy. So those figures at the bottom of the screen with the bandings of where we wanted our fees and charges to sit. We'll obviously review that in the next year as we lead into the LTP. Usually when we do that, in fact always when we do that in this sort of area, we compare our fee recovery bandings against that of our peers. Okay, so against neighbouring councils. So we'll make sure that we do that. Also in the lead up to an LTP, we actually review our overhead models, because there have been some comments in terms of what overheads are we recovering. That will be a key focus in the next year as well as we pull together an LTP. So I would suggest, I mean it's the first time I've seen those figures that Tony's just presented, but to me they didn't look really out of kilter. Yes, I appreciate they did look a little bit higher than some of our peers, but I'd just say there's quite a few considerations there. They don't look wildly out, and we will quite naturally review those things over the next year anyway.
Great, thanks for that, Ken. Gary, you're waving your hand around there.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to Claire's point about are we recovering an appropriate level of indirect costs, that's something we'll look at with our overhead model, but Audit New Zealand have done some work around an appropriate multiplier of direct costs, and whereas the private sector would sit at a multiplier of around about 2.7, local government tends to sit at about 2.1. So when we review our overhead allocation, we'll just refer back to that Audit New Zealand work and make sure we're still charging indirect costs at an appropriate level.
Right, thanks for that. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you through that, Madam Chair. Yeah, I guess the fees is half the equation, but as been alluded to, any efficiencies that can be made is definitely the other half, because it's not just the money, it's money times time gets you to a final account. So the hourly rate in the end can be X, but if it's time by more hours because we haven't looked at the efficiencies, then the bill is always possibly going to be more than it could be. So I guess if we just take a Kaizen approach, I heard the chair yesterday, continuous improvement. Yeah, when it's time to look at this, it's just looking at all the technology and all the timings and everything else that go into creating these fee amounts, and just are there any efficiencies within that to reduce the time.
Yeah, great. Great. Good point there, Mike. Roger, have you got a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. An interesting discussion. For for me, it seems to be that the end is what is the quantum or the dollar value of the recovery that's coming in, that's contributing to the budget. And that, the equation that drives that is a question of what dollar value do we charge per hour, and how much of the total time that's committed to that project is charged. And I'm assuming that when you say the percentage of recovery, then there are a number of hours that are not charged out that relate to that particular event. So I'd be interested in having a look at that chart that's sent through, but maybe have a look at the overall contribution to the dollar value at the end of the day. Is that relevant, Tony?
If I understand the question, is that the total invoicing that we're invoicing for applications, like the total amount?
Yeah.
It is valid, and I'm picking up on Councillor Pettit's query or comment too around time as the other factor. So we have had a couple of instances, I guess, bedding in with some new staff and new consultants that I've alluded to with Cogswell, where they challenged a couple of invoices, so we worked that through with them. We could do that, but it would need to be on almost an individual application basis. And the reason for that is all applications are different. The complexity of applications ranges widely. And the other comment probably to make is too that our efficiency is dependent on the information we receive from the applicants themselves and their consultants and the quality of that advice. What I can say is that we've had one submission from one submitter, which has raised valid questions. But to me, if there was a systemic issue around our rates, we would have had multiple submissions from multiple consultants. So often we're in a situation where we as staff have to spend more time because we have to ask more information in order to make an informed decision on the applications. So, sorry, it's a long answer. Yes, we could provide some analysis of that, but it would need to be almost down to an application level and to explain the complexity of each application as well.
Yep, appreciate that. Yep, okay, thank you.
Just perhaps I can just follow on from Tony. In regard to total cost of running a planning department, for example, you're just not going to recover the total cost, operating cost of that team. There are a lot of public good components associated with running the team. There's counter inquiries, there might be processing applications for MEIT or other clubs that we just don't charge for, or there might be fixed charges that we don't recover the balance cost of, such as might be in protected trees or heritage buildings or the like. So I just make the point that that's why Ken's referring to the funding policy, why it's relatively low in the planning area, say, compared to the building consent area, where the majority of costs are simply processing applications or doing inspections, where you can recover a majority of time. So, thank you.
Great. Okay, I think I've got, let me just shrink this down so I can see everybody. And no other questions there of Tony in respect of those specific queries raised by Cogswell? Great. Well, you'll see in your submissions that those questions or issues related to submitter number 11. So perhaps if we go to the beginning of the fees and charges, and remembering, of course, we're not going to be making any decisions today around these, as they are financial matters. We'll defer our decision making until the 9th rather. But I thought it would be helpful if we just ensure we actually addressed every submission, went through them within those categories. So I'm on page 43 of Appendix 3. And it's entitled fees and charges. And the this first several here by submitter number 7, it obviously relates to liquor licensing. Have we got any queries or questions or just points of discussion in respect of those submissions?
Susan, I mean, look, I'm really happy with the staff comments. They've given good explanation as to whether it's possible to reduce the fees or why it's not viable. or the fact that we are going through a detailed process where we're looking at what we can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm really happy with all those comments.
I think it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? If we don't have jurisdiction, it's something that doesn't rest with us. It's something outside of our fish to fry, so to speak. So if there being no further discussion in respect of those liquor licensing submissions, I did have a note down there, but I think I had actually a question on 7.4. The staff comment says fees under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 are set by regulation, not by council. To date, there have been indication from central government. Is that, are we missing a word there? Should it be there has been no indication, or there have been indications? I wasn't quite sure of the sense of that.
Yes, Chair, I think you're quite correct there. There does appear to be the word no missing. I think we can just confirm that with Carl, but I'm pretty sure that we've missed a word out there.
Yeah, cool. I guessed as much, but I thought I'd just clarify because it's a reasonably important no.
Yep, that's correct.
Great. Oh, thanks, Carl. Thank you for that. No questions of Carl, obviously, in respect to this matter, and we can move on. No questions. Great.
Portal Davies has a question.
Oh, Portal does?
Oh, actually, I don't. Sam, if I raise my hand, if I text you and raise my hand, that means I want to speak, but I don't at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Portal. Okay, so that on the basis we're comfortable with those recommendations there, we'll move on to the next submission point for discussion, which is adopting the comments. The submission, if you like, can be summarised by indicating that there was a suggestion that we adopt aspects of the Hamilton City Council's 12-point recovery plan. There seems to have been a response there that seems, to my mind, to be reasonably comprehensive. Has anybody got anything they want to discuss on that? No, we're fine with that one. I better just tick these off as we go through. The next one may have more discussion in reference to deferring proposed development contribution fee increases. There is a staff comment there suggesting that council will look at different development contribution funding models in the up and coming 2021 review of the DC policy. So I think that gives some hope perhaps there for the submitter. Any comments or questions?
The only comment is they're likely to go up, not down.
Well, you never know. You never know. No other questions or comments? Okay, and we've dealt with submitter number 11, so we can move on.
Yeah, there are more points that submitter 11 included. It wasn't just the RMA fees.
Okay.
So particularly around 11.3, I can see here, and 11.4.
Okay.
Just a point, Chair, that if councillors are comfortable with making decisions on any of these, then there's no reason why you shouldn't. It's just where you're not comfortable in any of the financial decisions at this stage because of the revisions to budgets, then you may wish to defer to a later date, but there's no compulsion to do so.
Okay.
Put it that way.
Okay.
In fact, the more decisions we get today, the easier it's going to be for us all, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So where are we? The liquor licensing matters. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my computer going properly. It's just decided to go crazy on me. We'll defer those. We're happy to defer that because it is financial.
But on the other hand, everyone seemed to be happy.
Oh, actually, no. Yeah, no, you're right.
Recommendations.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
It's only if you're not feeling comfortable with making a financial decision at this stage without seeing the revisions to the budgets, then we would suggest that you should
okay.
defer.
And
maybe that you want to just decide that you're going to support the staff recommendation, which might be to consider that as part of the annual plan financials as well. That could be a decision that you make and then decide later on the actual subject matter.
Okay, so is it your preference, Graham and or Joe, that we deal with each recommendation and square it away and then we can move on?
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is certainly the preference with regard to those community funding applications. If you ideally you would make a decision today, but if you wish to look at those in the wider context of the overall budget, then that's possibly something that you may wish to defer. But ideally, we will work through these item by item and make a recommendation.
Okay, so if we just back up a little bit to the district licensing ones, we'll clear those away then. Can I take it we're all comfortable with the recommendations given by staff on submission points 7.3 and 7.4? Yep. Do you need anything further from me on that one and we can move on?
That's fine.
Perfect. Adopting aspects, so this is 10.8, which is the suggestion to adopt aspects of the Hamilton City Council's 12-point recovery plan. Are we comfortable with the recommendation that council just thanks the submitter for their suggestion?
Yes, I'm comfortable because I seem to recollect somewhere through this looking at the Waikato Regional Recovery Plan, and somehow the Waipart Recovery Plan is somewhere within all of that. And so, why do we need to be going into let's just work with what's happening? I don't know, others may have a different opinion. Jim, you might have a different opinion as to how quickly and when all this is going to happen. But I think this is very much part of the changing environment that we are now about to face because of COVID-19. But yes, just looking what's already being done. Yeah, I don't know, that was anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Hazel. So we're comfortable with that recommendation as a committee? Yes? Oh, yeah. No, Lou's got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm quite supportive of this because I think we need to cooperate as a council with our councils around us with this recovery process. And I think it's essential that we work together and collectively achieve much better objectives. So I do think that we do need to work together, and I think I'm very comfortable with it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your comment, Lou. So it's fair to say Roger, have a question or comment?
Just a question. I'm not too sure I've seen the 12-point Hamilton City Recovery Plan.
Debbie has it.
I can email it out to you if you want it.
Thank you.
Jim?
Oh, Susan, yeah, just on that 12-point plan, and I agree with Lou's comments that we've obviously got to work together, but and I haven't got it in front of me now, but I did read it, but my recollection is that there was quite a lot of social giving away funds, etc., in that 12-point plan that we may not well want to go along with. And whilst I support the concept of working together, we've got to sort this problem out regionally and nationally probably, but I think just acknowledging that we've taken account of it, but we're not necessarily just going to blindly follow what the city says.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, right, well, we're comfortable by and large with that recommendation. Moving on to the next point of submission, which is 10.9, relating to the development contribution. I think we can agree that that is a financial matter which probably best to defer until the 9th of June. So we'll defer that one. I'll just write that on my page, otherwise I will get completely lost. So then that moves us into the Cogswell submissions, which is 11.1. We've addressed that, is that correct?
Actually, Susan,
yes,
at the submission yesterday when they made their presentation, there was a comment about Cogswells or other developers and agents wanting to work more closely with council in refining these processes to get greater efficiencies. And I'm sure that Tony said something like, yes, yeah, we want to do that. And so the response is actually that it's actually staff that are going to work on the continuous improvement and then let agents know. So I just think I'd like to see a slightly different response to reflect that staff are open to working with agents to try and get greater efficiencies.
Okay.
Perhaps I misunderstood what Tony said. I don't know.
No, so you're right. We are already working with consultants on a case-by-case basis. So we do have continuous improvement. We don't have a planned program of actively going out to all the consultants to look at all our processes and do a major overhaul. That's quite a complex process. So I guess what I was trying to get across is it's more of a case-by-case, as needed, as things crop up, and often we'll identify them ourselves as well. So it's not always customer identified. We'll look at something and say, we can do this better. So that's the process we've got.
Yeah, so I'd like that reflected in the response. And at the moment it says your point is noted, but no changes are recommended. And so, I mean, I'd rather say that that opportunities for us efficiencies are considered as they arise, and you know, we do work with applicants on a case-by-case basis or something.
Yeah, look, I think that would better reflect the discussions that were had, and certainly the staff position, I would think, Tony. So, Graham, are you in the position of rewording that, or is Jenny, or?
I think Jenny's or Sam are working on this. If they can confirm, that'd be good.
Oh.
Yeah, we are, both of us.
Excellent.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So do you want me to wait for that, or shall we move on to the next one?
What we could do, we've got a table and we're populating that with where you're supporting the submission, and we'll put any comments to the side. So if you want to, at the end of the fees and charges, if we just share the screen, just to kind of wrap that up and just confirm where everyone's at, if that works.
That would be good. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joe. Okay, well, that being the case, we'll move on to the next one we discussed, obviously fairly comprehensively. Again, it touches on financial matters. I'm assuming we'll be in a position where we'd rather defer any clear decision making on that request until the 9th. Hazel, are you waving your hand, or are you having problems?
I appreciate you telling us which number it is and the point number, so that I can quickly find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind? Yeah, you've been so far, so that I can be part of, you know.
Yeah, it's point 11.2 on page 45.
Oh, yeah, yep, got that.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm right in assuming that this will be deferred as it's of a financial nature, notwithstanding we've had some pretty thorough discussion on it today. So
it depends whether the committee are comfortable with accepting it or not.
Yeah. So, what's the feel, people? Andrew?
Yeah, look, I don't think we're in a position to make any changes to staff processes at this time. Yes, we can commit to review in the appropriate times, but we just can't say we're going to cut DCs or we're going to you know, reduce fees and charges willy-nilly. It doesn't make any sense. I think the recommendations are all quite clear. I'm not sure, I can't see where the responses are in this appendix 3 to the actual submitters, but all the recommendations and responses seem quite appropriate as far as I can see.
Susan?
Yeah.
What I'd like to see reflected in the response is that we will look at reviewing them. You know, that perhaps the you know, the points raised, you know, had prompted us to review it, and like that's the work that Tony's been doing. He's been looking at the wider context, you know, the rates from other councils and consultants. But at this point, you know, we can't make a decision, as Andrew said, you know, to reduce them. But I think the submitter would probably appreciate knowing that because of what information they presented, that we are doing a review to make sure that, you know, our fees and charges are reasonable and fair. That's all. And at the moment, that's not really in there.
So would you prefer that there be a change to that recommendation to say more than the status quo is maintained?
Yeah, their submission has prompted us to initiate a review.
Yeah,
but I mean that's going to take time, you know. But yeah.
Ken, you're waving your hand around. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say, like I said a few minutes ago, that we would do this quite naturally anyway as part of our LTP. So look, we could certainly change the comment and indicate that every 3 years we do review our revenue and financing policy and our overhead models. So we will do that over the next year.
Yeah, that would be great.
That makes sense. More productive, yeah. Okay, so I take it, Jenny, we're going to amend that recommendation slightly, and if we can then move on to submission point 11.3 on page 45. It's relating to the RTIC manager.
That's fine, Susan. Thank you.
Cool. Have we got any comments on that? Tony, did you have anything to add on this, or Claire, a question? Oh, Roger, you're asking a question.
Yeah, I just have a question. What is RTIC manager? Is this a new software that we're using? Is it a new process? I honestly don't know what it is.
Articulation manager of the water.
Yeah. Tony, you can perhaps answer that more succinctly and more learnedly than I can.
I had the same, I guess, query as Councillor Gordon. I'm assuming it's reticulation manager, and it would then relate to probably the services department of the organisation.
Graham,
right. I think I have some knowledge on this because I fell into the same trap of changing RTIC manager to reticulation manager, thinking it was a job title. I believe it is some software called RTIC manager. I understand it's to do with examining the status or the condition of pipe work underground. So it's part of sort of a CCTV camera inspection of pipe work to check that it's been installed properly from the inside, that it's in good quality, that it's fit for purpose. If it's going to be taken over as a council asset, we need to know that in advance, and that everything is okay with it. So that's what I understand. I can't see Martin in the meeting at the moment, Martin Mould. So that was the information that he provided to me, or that's my understanding of the information he provided to me. Let me put it that way.
Thank you for that clarification, Graham. Roger.
Yeah, I'd just like more information on it then, if we're going to make a decision on that. Just a little bit more about what the value is to the organisation, what the cost is. I mean, to be honest, we can't make a decision on that until we get some more information.
Does anybody else have an opinion or a comment to make about that particular submission?
Susan, Graham here. No, it is what it is. And before the council takes over vested assets, especially in a new subdivision, they want to know what they're taking over and they're fit for purpose, and whether they've been joined correctly, they have any blockages in them, and it's fair, and the impact on council means they don't have to come back and revisit it.
Okay, so Andrew, did you have something to say there?
Well, yeah, it just seems like this developer's asking us to take over assets that we don't know what the quality or whatever is, and the recommendation seems entirely appropriate to me.
Yeah, okay, so can I take it that there's a general agreement about that recommendation, and we're comfortable with squaring that one away this morning? Yeah?
Yeah, look, happy, Susan. Yeah.
Cool, okay. So that one is confirmed, and moving on then to point 11.4. This is water connection charges are inconsistent. It should all be charged at the urban rate. We have some staff comments there, and the recommendation is that council thanks the submitter but considers the urban rural fee structure to be appropriate and should continue. There seem to be some nodding heads around the place. Anybody go, Liz? Yeah.
I think this one's fine. I think that the you know, when we discussed it yesterday, the submission, it was largely due to the Puki Remo water scheme and the challenges that we've got there. So
yeah, okay. So we're comfortable with squaring away that, confirming that recommendation?
Yes, I think we are.
Okay, great. Tick that one off. Trying to tick them off as I go, or I'll get highly confused. Moving on to another submitter, so 18.1. This is in respect of DCs. Does anybody have a particular position they want to express on this particular submission? We have a recommendation that the fees are accepted and staff continue to pursue the offer previously made by the submitter. It's obviously a specific issue.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we've spent a lot of time on these. They're very, very critical for everybody doing subdivisions, and we benchmark with other councils, and we've had a lot of times. I'm really quite confident that what we're doing is fair and reasonable to be fair.
Okay, Claire, you had
yeah, look, when I read the full submission, actually it sounded like there was a bit to be desired in the process. That I think early discussions with staff had indicated likely DC levels, and then these had increased, you know, by 300% or something, and then it all depended on the catchment of the various services and things like that. And so I don't have a problem with the actual staff comments and response, but it is a signal that we have to watch the process to make sure that we're not really alienating our developers and things. I'm sure that like the staff that I see working, you know, that I know they're completely dedicated and know what they're talking about and that they do. But it's just, you know, this kind of submission just shows that we've got to be really careful to make sure that that sort of professional relationship that we're trying to maintain with our developers is yeah, it is protected and yeah, kept at the highest possible level, you know, in good heart.
Good observation, Claire. Any other comments? Because I think I get the sense we're all comfortable with the recommendation there is appearing near the bottom of that page. Would that be right?
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I just say, you know, you get a consent to do a subdivision, and the DCs at the time are what they are, but there's a lag time before that takes place. And you know what's been happening in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a tremendous amount of work go on, and we have faced, everybody has faced increased charges and all sorts of things, from pipes to culverts to tarsi or whatever. And they're just a continual review, I think, and these people need to realise if they have a subdivision that's had a time lag, or they're running into a difficult non-flat or a wet area or whatever, then there'll be some variations. And I think it's hard to judge every development contribution on every site.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Graham. Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the development contributions are generally linked to the structure plans that we've approved and our capital works program and our long-term plan. Now, we absolutely accept that from time to time there will be development that sit out with all of those criteria. And that's why we have those development agreements that we've structured, and Richard Bax has just arrived, where we come to an agreement on a fair and equitable payment from the developer to provide all of the infrastructure. So generally these things for the really large complex subdivisions are structured by agreement, and there's a lot of negotiation that goes on in that process. But perhaps Richard, you might want to comment further on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think you've summed it up well, Gary. I think the particular situation we had here.
I'm sorry, Richard, I can't hear. Am I the only one, or is it everybody's experience?
I can't hear. I'm sorry, is that better?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
Right, I'll sit a bit closer. So excuse the view. I guess what happened in this particular instance was that the developer was looking at the DCs chargeable before the 2016 policy came into place. So we're talking about quite a while back, and or 15, sorry. So that was, I think, part of the issue. But as you saw in the response here, I've offered to work with them and come up with a solution. This submission was a bit of a surprise in the face of all the discussions we'd had. So I think there might have been a bit of a side issue that triggered this rather than a direct one. So we'll continue the discussion, and as Councillor St Pierre made the point, it's really important that we have good relationships with the developers, and that's something that we encourage and work on all the time.
Yeah, it's a crucial part of district growth and a successful sort of plan, isn't it? Any other comments? No. So on that basis, I assume we're comfortable with that recommendation as appearing at the bottom of that page. And then we can move on to the final submission in this section, being 30.3, which is from the Cambridge Community Board in respect of the removal of fees for books. Have we any comments and discussion on that? Claire?
Yeah, like Jim made the comment when Sue Milner talked to us yesterday that she's been asking for this to happen for many years, and she makes the point that we're the only council that charges for library books like this. And I really hear what Jim is saying. Look, we can't afford to forego that revenue. However, I think we should have a transition plan or something. So we're never going to be able to come up with, you know, an extra $75,000 in one hit. But is there a way that we can put in place a plan so that over a period of years, we could move towards achieving, you know, free access to our libraries?
Through you, Madam Chair, I suppose free access, and I keep banging on about free access, it just means ratepayers are paying for it. Yeah. Someone else is paying for that free access. And I suppose the point that has always been made is that it's a fairly small charge, and it does actually represent I suppose, a payment for the people who use the library more than they use sports grounds or anything else. So it is only a minor contribution in the overall cost of the libraries, but it also has the, I suppose, the aspect that it does limit the number of books people take out. I was around when this was introduced, and people were taking out astronomical numbers of books that they couldn't possibly read in the week or fortnight that they had them out for. Take them out just on the off chance they would read them. So it was a sort of a managing or rationing the resource, if you like, in a very small way. But I suppose I get to the principle that if people are using the library for those recreational purposes, then they should pay a contribution, although it's small. If it's for education purposes, we accept there's a public good component. So at some point, it's if we don't want to charge for the books, then if we're going to keep the rates the same, the level of service has got to drop. Either that, or we come up with a commercial arm of our library that does charge for those first release type books that Sue was talking about yesterday, and rather than have the system that we've got now, we introduce some other system of charging to generate that level of revenue. Look, I'm surprised. Yeah, I acknowledge that we are probably one of the only councils in the country making these charges, but maybe some of the other councils should follow our lead rather than the other way around.
But
Claire,
I just
Claire, then Marcus, then Hazel.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be interesting to understand how other councils manage it. Yeah, that's all. Like it says in the response that there will be a business case about it. I think it would be helpful to see how other councils that don't levy these charges, how they manage it.
So, and just on the point of clarification, the submission is for we would lose $56,000 or nearly $57,000 worth of revenue. But my understanding is our revenue from those libraries, library books, is around about 170 something. So I don't know whether Ken's got that figure in hand, whether he can tell us exactly what we would lose if we wipe those charges.
Yes, so I believe, you quoted the figure that I told you yesterday. I believe it was $176,000 of library revenue we get. I don't know if you've still got that, or if one of the finance team can help out. But I think it was in that order, the amount of our library revenue.
I have Sally here who's going to say something.
Yes, that is correct. We do have other charges. So we charge for magazines, for DVDs, etc. So the 56,000 is based on the cost for adult books, which are charged out at 50 cents per book. So that's where that figure has come from.
And Sally, is that across the whole district, not just Cambridge?
That's across the whole district, yes. So obviously, if that was waived, then that would be the difference that we would need to find in revenue. The unfortunate thing in terms of discussions that we had yesterday, our system can't give us information on the releases or the issues that we have based on publication date of books. So we're not able to give you a figure that, for example, if we did a charge for recent releases that would say 12 to 18 months old, we can't actually give you a figure of what that would be from a revenue perspective.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Sally. Gary, you have a comment to make.
Oh, sorry, through the chair. Yeah, last year the library revenue was 176,000.
Gary, you were going to say
Yes,
something?
once again, if the council's of a mind to review the fees and charges for libraries, we can do that in line with our revenue and finance policy through the LTP process. What I'd like to do is circulate you a copy of a paper that Wayne Allen prepared as part of his master's degree that looked at YPA's charging policy in respect of library books in depth, and it gives you the justification for it, in a public policy sense. So we'll circulate that so you're well informed, and then you can perhaps provide us direction on whether you want us to review the fees and charges through this LTP process over the next 12 months.
That'd be great. Thanks, Gary. It seems a sensible way forward. Marcus, did you have a comment to make or a question?
Yeah, I think that's great, Gary, if we could do that then. I'd also like to actually hear from the frontline staff about what they think of the policy of charging for the books and what impact it does have on our communities, because they're the ones that they talk to and see the effects of the people who can't afford to read and things, and it would be actually quite good to hear from them.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, just to back up what Gary and Marcus have just said too. So would that then mean the recommendation we could change that we are going to look at this and review this? I think that would be fair and reasonable. And also again about that continuous improvement, as Marcus has picked up, those frontline staff may have other ideas because they're part of networks too about how we can increase revenue in other areas. And also moving forward, if we look at this over a 5 or 10 year strategy, that library may not always be in its current size, etc., etc. There may be other things that these staff have in the pipeline that could generate revenue. Because the other thing we were told at the community board a few years ago is it costs $7 or something to take out a book, and we recoup 50 cents. It seems 56 grand is 0.1% of a rate. And if you throw a lens over this, surely we can create some more revenue somewhere within that library organisation.
Hazel, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, not really a question, but I sometimes wonder where these statements come from, because we avid book readers, our libraries are wonderful places. They get in the latest books as quick as you can. You've only got to ask them if the book isn't there, and they'll have it for you within a couple of days. And I think the service there, what we get for our 50 cents or whatever, is minimal, and certainly we can't afford to go and buy the books. Probably the best avenue for any of the book lovers, and that's many of your senior citizens who'd much rather read a book than watch some of the nonsense on TV. And so, look, I've been in contact with many of our senior citizens over this, and they think they love it. And when you go into the library, there's lines of people with more than 1 or 2 books, but you're quite right that it tends to get us, we read it and get it back to the library. I think it's an amazing service for which I don't mind paying, because it's something that I enjoy very much, and it's my relaxation time. So I'm in favour of just leaving things as they are, because I know that there's a huge sector of our community, and I haven't met anybody yet. I know a woman with 7 kids who goes there every fortnight to get the books because she believes in that, and she doesn't mind paying for it. That's part of their management of their funds. And so I'm kind of, I don't want to make a big issue out of this, because I think maybe if the 1 or 2 that complain about it are heard, but those of us who enjoy it don't, then I think we've got to stick with the revenue that we get from it, that we can actually get better books. You know, it allows libraries to run better. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Hazel. Graham, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to back up Hazel, and it was topic of interest. And as I said yesterday, there was letters to the editor in the papers saying that it was good value. So there wasn't a plethora of people coming out of left field saying, yeah, you know, get rid of this fee. The other thing we needed to note was that, and Sue talked about this, they have, it's not they don't charge at all, the other libraries in New Zealand. They have set fees for new editions, which, you know, they might charge $2 or $3. So it's not free, if you know what I mean. It's just a different form of charging.
Yeah, and we don't have to go and buy our own books. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Good. So
I think we should leave the recommendation as it is, to be honest.
Are you happy with the recommendation as it is, or did we want to make some amendment making reference to the issues raised by Gary in terms of that policy review during the LTP process?
Well, I wouldn't mind reading the policy review, but I say leave it as it is.
Okay.
You agree? Have I got any complete?
No, I mean, I'm really in favour of what Mike and Marcus said about getting some feedback, like doing a review, getting feedback from the frontline staff and other councils about how they manage it, and whether or not there might be a much better approach where we will achieve the outcomes we want and improve the access for our community. So I don't want to leave things as it is.
You don't? I mean, the recommendation, how would you prefer it be worded then, Claire? Have you any suggestions?
Well, I thought Hazel was saying not to go for the business case, but just to leave it at the status quo, that it was good value as it stood.
Yeah.
As in favour of the business case and extending it to include feedback from frontline library staff and other councils to understand their funding models and other approaches to gain revenue while improving access.
Okay, well, do we need to ultimate that recommendation to record that and just at all? I wouldn't think that we need to. I mean, it says in terms of the staff comments, a business case to develop a strategic plan for Waipa District Council's library services has been included for consideration in the 2131 LTP process. You're just saying that you want to include in that staff comment that will also include consultation or inclusion of frontline staff perspective and canvassing other jurisdictions. Is that what you're suggesting, Claire?
Well, yes, but your question was, were we happy with what Hazel was suggesting with not doing that?
Oh, and I'm quite happy to have that added on to it. Let do it as well. But I also wanted to say that you know, we're happy with things as they are, but I have no objection to accepting the review. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the what's in the staff recommendation is what everyone is agreeing with.
Yeah, I see that.
I agree.
Yeah. So we're comfortable with the recommendation as it sits. Excellent. Okay. We're happy to deal with that one, and that's good. Now, so Jenny, are you in a position, and Sam in a position, to be able to provide us with that table, if you like, of what our amendments were regarding those recommendations? Or do you need a few more minutes? Because we could break for 5 if we. Mike, have you got a question?
I just want to clarify something. I just want to clarify that last submission we talked about under recommendation, the very last bit of it, I understand a bit above it, but it's council notes the submitter's request but declines to reduce library lending fees and charges. So does that still make sense in terms of reviewing this as part of a 2021, like a long-term plan application? Because it's not so much about not reducing fees, it's about looking at the business. It's about looking at the business. You may end up making more money out of this by looking at the business. Don't just have library books, it's the whole of running a library.
Yeah, I think that the point is that the submission relates to this annual plan.
Yeah.
And the staff comments relate to work going forward in the LTP. So the recommendation in response to the specific submission about this annual plan, it's actually, the response is correct.
Gotcha.
That's the way I read it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Susan, but just on that, well, I've made the assumption that what the staff comments say is what the response is sent to the submitter. But I think what Mike's trying to clarify is that if the response that the submitter gets just what the recommendation is, which is we've noted your submission, but we're declining to do anything. It'd be much better if all of the comments that are in the staff comments were also given to the submitter.
Graham would be able to answer that for me, I'm sure. Or Kirsty.
The staff comments as we've published are in a public document. It's what we're reading now. In terms of what we send to the submitter at the end of the whole annual plan process, once we've adopted it, will be based on those comments. Because obviously things may just move forward with any other comments or anything that's made during the later stages of the annual plan. Plus, of course, we don't know what the final outcome of the annual plan is going to be yet, because we've not gone through those stages. So that's all taken into account and wrapped up in the response we finally provide to them. But obviously based on the staff comments we've got already, and the recommendation that you provide, or the decision you make rather.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Just through you, Madam Chair, just to add to that, we very much want to adopt a customer-focused approach in providing responses to the submission process, so to ensure that we provide as much information as possible. So as Graham said, we will be approaching those on a case-by-case basis, having consideration to the staff comments, the recommendation, and anything that changes in between.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. So I can assume we're happy with that last matter. Good. And so now, Jenny, do we have a screen or Sam?
Yeah, I'm happy to screen share what we've got for now, if you like.
Okay. Yes, please. That'd be helpful. Okay. Defer 2000. Okay, so there we have the first three submissions, no change as per our discussions. 10.9 we were deferring, that's relating to developers' contributions. 11.1, that was the Cogswell submission. So submission point noted, opportunities for efficiencies are considered as they arise, and we will work with the applicants on a case-by-case basis. I think that's a good improvement. 11.2 relates to the hourly rates. So the response we've put there is every 3 years we review our revenue and financial policies, including our overhead models, as part of the LTP process, and our fees and charges will be reviewed as part of the development of the 21-31 LTP over the next 12 months. I think that's a much better response. Thank you. And then clauses, points 11.3 and 0.4 remain unchanged, 18.1 to 20.3 unchanged. And then that's us. Yeah, that's all of that. So we're all comfortable with those changes?
Yep.
Excellent. Great. Now, should we quickly whiz through the unassigned ones just because they're the last page on this particular document on page 48. To square them away, and then I don't know whether people would like to have a quick break or not. Been at it for a while. But
through the chair, these are just 2 points that didn't quite seem to fit into anywhere else, as you'll understand looking at them.
Yeah. Now, does anybody have a difficulty with either of the responses made on those 2 particular, or to deal with 39.1? It was just a support of by the Te Awamutu Community Board Full Council, which was much appreciated. So I'm assuming we're all comfortable with that response. And then the last one was in response to a submission that sort of traversed a whole lot of issues, but didn't seek any particular remedy or response in any particular way. So are we comfortable with that recommendation?
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, this submitter, I think, was asking for heavy traffic to be diverted from Rolleston Street and Flat Road, and I take it that that's not really a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know that is the one.
No, I don't think this submitter actually was the person who would have kicked us off yesterday.
Yeah.
But didn't join the meeting. But I don't think this is I think the person who was talking about Flat Road was the submitter who had to withdraw from yesterday afternoon's hearings. So
yeah,
and
different person.
Hazel?
I hope that's coming up somewhere, because I don't quite agree with Andrews. We just had a very nasty accident down there this week.
Okay.
And so
can I just interrupt you for a minute, because it's actually not relevant to this particular
but
point, but it will come up.
Yeah, where it comes up,
It will come up. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So are we comfortable with that recommendation that she's no specific remedies? So the recommendation is just to thank her. Yep, we're comfortable with that. Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, so we can square those 2 away. Now, do people want a comfort stop or a wee break, or are you happy to soldier on?
Soldier on.
Soldier on. Okay. Gosh, where to now then? So we've dealt with obviously fees and charges and unassigned matters. I think it's probably appropriate to shoot back up again to either the 3 big ones, the financial issues, so that we can square them away or defer them. If we're comfortable with that, we could take the bull by the horns and start with rates if we like, right at the beginning of the document. Are we okay?
I think on these, Chair, we'll make a lot of progress quite quickly because some of them are very similar.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so 3.1, obviously, we're on page 3 of Appendix 3, for those who aren't sure where we were. We're at the Federated Farmers submission around rates. And the recommendation is that we acknowledge the submission and endorse the staff comments. And the staff comments is the, I don't want to use the word standard, but it's a very well worded and repeated response to a lot of the questions around our rates. And I think it's pretty comprehensive and explains position we're in quite well. So on the assumption that we're happy with that, that response, we can move on to the next one. Yeah? Everybody's very quiet.
Yeah, I'm just searching for where you are.
Okay, we're on page 3, Hazel, right at the beginning.
All right, yep.
Right at the beginning. Yeah, so we're doing them by topic, and rates is the topic we're on now.
Yep, got it.
Okay, so we're just out with that Federated Farmers submission. Yep. And then the next one is the Property Council of New Zealand. Very similar in vein, except that we've added the staff response there is that we've also agreed that ratepayers will have longer to pay their 2021 rates without penalties where they've set up payment arrangements. Those were the arrangements we set in place a few months ago, and we'll clear out so long as they'll clear those rates. So it gives them those prolonged timeframes. So just that additional staff comment to the standard well-worded response. And so there's our recommendation. Are we comfortable with that? Yep.
Yep, good.
The next one 6.1. Reduction in all rates apart from the usual rate holiday. Are you going to help us with the rates holiday? We're pensioners and we're really struggling. Would anybody like to make some comments in respect of this submitter's submission?
Susan, I'd probably just start off. And look, as cheap as we can keep the rates, the better. We all want to see that, but we've got to pay for our level of service. So in this particular case, those people that are on fixed incomes are probably and secure incomes are better off than a lot of people that are still likely to become unemployed. So I acknowledge that the retirement income is not significant in terms of having a lot of freeboard, but the situation hasn't changed for people on pensions, if you like it, in this COVID situation. So look, I acknowledge that it's a struggle for people, but the rates are good value for money, and we do need to keep the rating level up.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, Hazel. Oh, did you have anything? No, Claire.
Well,
yeah, a bit of a distinction between a rates holiday and waiving rates. You know, like if you get a rates holiday, you've still got to pay them, and it may well be that there might be additional charges or something. I don't know. Like it's a bit like a mortgage holiday. You know, it doesn't mean you don't have to pay it, and you might get extra interest at the end of it. So I'm really happy with the response. Actually, it really sets out what the arrangements are if people are in you know, struggling to meet their payments right now. Yeah, and it addresses Jim's, you know, mantra that we've got to pay for these services somehow. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you. Have we got anything further on that, or are we quite comfortable with that?
Oh, Sue, Graham here. Look, and I'll make a comment. Can we just make sure that when a reply goes back to the submitter, they are aware of the rates remission through council for about $635 to see if they've picked up or they've missed it. I know that we send it out in our rates, but it would be very, very good to have these people know what is available through council and the government subsidy. That's all.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good point, Graham. There may be people who had never even contemplated or thought about the need to even apply for it in the past. So
some people just need to know where to go, just a little bit of a direction on where to go.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. Okay, so we're happy with that recommendation. That means we'll move on to the next one, 6.1. Reduction in all rates apart from the usual rate holiday. You're going to help with the rates holiday. Oh, is that the same one? No, sorry, I'm repeating myself.
Yeah.
Under 7.1,
I think so.
7.1, no rate increases. In the current climate, we strongly urge all councils to consider no increases for the next 12 months at a minimum. Again, we have the staff response as worded earlier, and the recommendation is council acknowledges the submission and endorses staff comments. Do we have any further discussion on there?
No.
No, not for now. We're happy with that.
Happy with it.
Yep.
Wonderful. Next one, 7.2, council should consider rate remissions or rate rebates for businesses adversely affected by COVID, including delay rate instalments. Again, same response and setting out, same response as the earlier one in terms of the relief put in place by council and respective timeframes and agreements to pay. So the recommendation there is council asks the submitter for raising, thanks them for raising their concerns, but no further action. We're happy with that. Yep, great. Moving on to the next one. 8.1, similar vein in that it is no rates increase, do your job. We've got this wonderfully worded response there from staff and the recommendation that council acknowledges the submissions and endorses. We're comfortable with that response at this point. Yep. Save. Okay, flicking over the page. So we're now on page 6. 9.1, very similar in flavour as well, and seeking a 0% rates freeze. Same response we've given in terms of that worded response from staff, and we acknowledge that submission and endorse the staff's comments. We're comfortable with that. Yep, great. Next one, same notion again, delaying any rates increases. In this particular one, there's been an additional comment in the staff comments that that we've commenced community engagement for the LTP, and that there are further opportunities for community input in respect of that submission. So again, the recommendation is that we acknowledge the submission and endorse the staff's response. Yep. Anybody? No, nobody. Excellent. Fantastic. Save. Turn the page. 10.2. Rates relief or rate options such as waiving late fees, allowing for delayed rates instalment for all. Again, I think that's been pretty well covered in some of the earlier submissions, and we were comfortable with the responses. So I assume, in lieu of anybody waving their hands around, we're comfortable with the response there and the recommendation. Much the same as 12.1. And moving us on then to 19.10. So this is the community boards, Timutu Community Board's submission asking council to lobby central government to have legislation changed to enable targeted rates relief to those in our community. I suspect this, I do know that this was worded or collated before we actually met and made any relief available in the earlier throes of COVID. So again, I think the response we've provided and the recommendation are appropriate.
Yeah.
I assume we're happy with that. Fine with that. Save. Excellent. So that brings us on. That's the end of that section.
Well, I make that a full house of everyone being accepting the recommendations. Is that correct, Jenny? Jenny's there.
I have it as a full house. I've ticked everything.
Sorry, Graham. Yes, we did. We just had a few extra comments which we put in, but yes, we did.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, well, it's now 11:15. I wondered if people were happy just soldering on. Yeah, okay. Right, we'll move chronologically on then to budgets. So somewhat similar, I guess, in terms of concern about spending. So the first one there is 10.6. Consider taking on more debt, especially for capital expenditure, to ensure key infrastructure projects continue to progress in order to maintain the workforce that's needed long term. Coming at it from a different angle, you'll see the response there again, and that we acknowledge the submission and endorse the staff recommendations. Has anybody got a comment on that one? It's sort of a little bit different in terms of its submission, but no comments, and so I take it we're comfortable with that.
I was just going to check. Can someone remind me what submission that one was? Who that was from?
10.6 is, hold on.
They're just a little bit invisible the way that we're sort of going through them. I just want to make sure that
yeah. I've been looking at the table of contents by submitter number, which is on Appendix 1. So that was 10. So that was the Property Council Waikato branch.
Was that one? Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yeah, if the submitter numbering is correct, which I believe it should be. So
they were just copied from one document into the next, so they should be consistent.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, it's just a little bit about anonymity because we don't. Yeah. But if you refer back to that index of submitter, you can work out who they are. So you happy with that, Liz?
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, same submitter. Obviously, so we're comfortable with that. Yeah, I'll tick that one off. And then the same submitter raises an issue in terms of leveraging the government's building depreciation policy. The council just essentially thanked them for their submission. Are we comfortable with that? Ken?
Yeah. So, sorry, through the chair, Susan. This one is a little bit unusual because, because really the government's building depreciation policy. I mean, I think that's referring to a recent tax break that the government's provided in the depreciation space. Of course, council is not a tax-paying entity, so in some ways this is really not applicable to us. We can't leverage the government's building depreciation policy because we really don't pay tax.
Okay.
So look, I just suggest a little bit of a reword of that and pick up on that element.
Okay, no, that makes sense, Ken. It clarifies it a little bit more for the submitter. So, Jenny, are you able to incorporate that into
Absolutely,
that?
Susan. No
cool.
problem.
Thank you. I'll just note that we're going to do a wee change there. So we'll come back to that one. So moving on to 12.2, the general submission related to reduce management salaries by 20% or more Who wants to kick me off on this one? Anyone? Or are we just going to agree with the staff comments and the recommendation there?
Yeah, move on.
Susan, I agree with the comments, but just wonder if we, when we do finalise this 9th of June or whenever it is, that we actually put a line in there that overall salary and consultancy costs have decreased by whatever it ends up being, just to show that we have taken it seriously. We're not picking on individuals, we're looking at the whole organisation, and we have actually achieved a positive result.
Yeah, look, I think that's sensible. And yeah, rather than just making a crude commitment to a blanket reduction, we've actually really gone through and looked at what we've got and fine-tuned it, made it more targeted reductions, and spaces. I think that's sensible. Okay, so on that assumption, can I assume we're happy with the recommendation there? Yep. Cool. So, and then 12.3, a suggestion there that we have a reduction in staffing numbers, and then obviously the response there, which you're all able to read, and that the recommendation be that we proceed with the determination of the revised annual plan, including priorities and budgets. We have any discussion on this? We're quite comfortable with the proposals. Great. The next one, 12.4, an interesting view, if you like, of the cost of the additional counsellor in Cambridge. There's obviously a staff comment there breaking down some of the costings there, and the recommendation that we acknowledge the submission and provide the information requested above. Are we comfortable with that? Yep. Fantastic. The next one then is 12.5. This is on page 10. Council should at least defer any non-essential expenditure like museums and so on and so forth. There's quite a well-worded, I thought, response there by staff about that balance, and I thought it was actually really nicely put. So I'm comfortable with the way that reads, but open to discussion on it. Nobody there?
It is a full explanation, which is good.
Yeah, I think it's good. So,
Susan, could I just duck back to the previous one in terms of the, again, it's similar to the comment I made previously in terms of the additional, the training costs, because that's one of the budgets we're looking at, and I don't know what that's been reduced down to, but from a councillor perspective, that was one of the possibilities of saving some money. So I think if we can quantify it, I'm not sure where we got to with that.
Yeah. Okay. So did you want to alter that recommendation or not, or flesh out rather the staff comments in that space?
Just maybe if there has been a significant saving in our training costs, which we were looking at pulling back on as just one means of reducing costs, we should, if it was 50k or something like that, it's worth putting in. Okay. That we've taken X amount of dollars out of the governance training budget.
Okay. Ken, you have your hand up.
Yes, so through the chair, I can't recall the figure, but yes, there was a significant reduction in training budget. So we could easily incorporate the comment that His Worship is looking for.
Okay. All right. If we could do that, that would be helpful. Deborah, are you waving your hand around?
It is $15,000 of training costs that have been saved.
Sorry, how much was that? Sorry, Deborah, I didn't quite catch that.
15,000 of training costs that have been saved.
Okay.
So, probably not worth a mention then.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Through the chair again. Actually, in the context of this, I thought the number was a bit bigger there, but we could also add in the number for the current year, because I know we killed off quite a bit in the current year. So I think our response could, even though I appreciate this is an annual plan submission, we could indicate that the dollars have reduced by so much in the current year and so much in the annual plan year.
Mm.
Let's have a look at what the numbers are before we put the comment together.
Okay, so should we just leave that one for now, push it to the side? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, so we dealt with the 12.5, so we're over the page on to page 11 then, submission 19.1. So this was the Tiamutu board, Tiamutu Community Board, I believe, too, supporting any decision the council may make in terms of non-essential expenditure. Again, it was a well-worded response and the recommendation acknowledging the submission and endorsing the comments. Comfortable with that? Yeah, excellent. And then 21.5, this is Heritage New Zealand's submission, I believe. Have we anybody that has an issue or a discussion to be had around their submission and comments and subsequent recommendation? No? Nobody? Okay, so we're comfortable with that. You can tick that one off as well. Okay, moving on then to 22.1. Again, a similar submission by somebody trying to suggest that we just put hold on everything. So we've got the well-worded response there by staff, and in our recommendation, we have a suggestion that we acknowledge that submission and endorse those comments. So we're comfortable with that approach? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And again, 22.4, the next one is much the same. And same response, we're happy with that. Okay. Oops.
Yep.
Great. We are ripping through these. Right, the next one, 22.5, that the council continue to utilise funding mechanisms such as targeted rates, fees and charges to fund services which have a high level of direct and identifiable benefits. So we've suggested, we've got a response there about the review mentioned earlier by Gary, and our recommendation there is that we acknowledge the submission and we'll review the request as part of the LTP policy review process. We're comfortable with that?
Oh,
yep.
Yeah,
Way to go.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. So that's good. Next one, 22.6, that council continue to keep the general rate contribution below 60% of the total district-wide funding. So are we comfortable with our response there that staff have detailed for us? We're happy with that. Excellent.
Yep.
No dissenters there, so we're comfortable with the recommendation, endorsing the comments. Thank you. Moving on to submission 27.4. There's a suggestion that rates should be lowered to encourage home ownership and less stress and on wage earners. There's a sort of scaled down response to the in terms of the comment that we seem to regularly have to some of these suggestions there, and an acknowledgement in the recommendation that the submission be received and their concerns for their lower rates noted. Are we happy with that?
Yeah, and I think that when we send out our rates demand, we must remember that it's not only pensioners that complain, that need this, but everybody gets that note about the subsidy, don't they? Do they?
I think it goes up with your rates demand, yes, but I think Graham Webber made a really good point before that in response to some of these specific submissions around rates, that we remind or alert them to the rates remission process, because it might have been something they hadn't ever contemplated prior to now.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, so we're happy with, sorry.
The point there is that it's income related. So that's the message we need to get out. It doesn't mean you have to be on a pension if you're on a sick benefit or a unemployment benefit or whatever it is, then you can apply for that subsidy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Point, Jim.
Great, so we're comfortable with that recommendation then. So then we can move on to 30.1. Interesting submission there.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to kick me off with any discussion on or suggestions or endorsement of the response or recommendation?
It's hard to decide when the more fortuitous time will arrive.
Look, I'm comfortable with the response that staff have provided there. And the recommendation is that the submission is acknowledged and that the submitters referred to the annual plan for budget and project details.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent response.
Yeah, comfortable with that. Excellent. So submission number, or point number 31.1. Liz, you might want to speak to this. Not putting you on the spot or anything, but obviously there's a person with a fairly clear view around some of the larger projects in the district. We've provided a response back to them there, and the recommendation that we acknowledge the submission and endorse the staff comments. Have I got any discussion on that point?
I was happy with the staff comment.
Yeah.
Excellent. Have I got anybody else adding anything to that? No? Brilliant.
Through the chair, just a point to note here. This submitter, I believe, was one who could not make the hearings either yesterday or today, because quite fortunate person managed to find himself a new job, admittedly in another part of the country, but well done him for that. So he wasn't able to present in person.
Okay. Well, Mike.
I'm just thinking, Roger and myself, yeah, we should probably excuse ourselves from this also, because that Cambridge Museum, which obviously we're both trustees of, and trying to raise that money, we should declare that we've taken no part in this decision.
Okay, that's noted, I think. Jenny, is it?
Yeah, that is noted.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. So that brings to end the conclusion, that section on budgets. Jenny, Jenny and Sam, did you have a little table for us to peruse quickly before we sign off on that lot?
We'll just see if we can get it shared on the screen, Susan. Just having a few technical issues.
That's awesome.
Just a moment.
No drama.
I don't know whether we're going to have a break at this point and I'll carry on, or
well, I'll be led by the committee. I'm nonplussed on either option, whether we soldier on or whether we take a break.
Kia ora, Sue, this is Poto. I just want to add a comment about the last 31.1 submission point, and it's just around just a response maybe about the Brian Perry charitable contribution of 300k, and maybe just a reflection that it brings in over that whole week, it will bring a whole lot of money into the community. So, and other things like that too.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Poto, did you want us to potentially look at changing anything or making addition to that staff comment, or are you just flagging it for us to be aware of?
No, I don't think there's any harm in adding that little bit of comment in the bottom. That's what we provide to Brian Perry Charitable Trust. Brings in a lot of revenue over that whole week. So, and that fully justifies what we outlay on that event.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Poto. Are we comfortable with making an amendment, perhaps, or an addition rather, to that staff comment in that vein? Yeah, I see nodding, a few nods of heads. So,
sorry, Susan, is this 4.1?
Sorry, no, it was 31.1. The last matter we dealt with.
Oh, right.
Sorry. So Poto, I can't see Poto, so she's relying on trying to get my attention other ways. So we switched off before we should have. So I take it, are we comfortable with making an addition there in reference to some of those? Yeah. Okay. So if Jenny, you could incorporate that, that'd be much appreciated. So.
Right.
Now, did we want to break just for 5 minutes or something so Jenny can get that? Oh no, here we go. She's got your screen up. Look at you go. Okay. So in terms of the budgets, summarising it, 10.6, no change. I've got that. 10.7, there is a slight amendment to the comments, amend staff comment to reflect the fact that this is not applicable to council. Thank you. The next three were unchanged. 12.5, I think it was 12.4, I think was the, oh no, 12.5. That's a deferral. Yeah, that's the deferring any non-essential expenditure like museums and pools. The council acknowledged the submission and endorsed the staff comments. I've got a tick next to that one.
Through you, Madam Chair, I also had that unchanged and just supporting the council staff recommendation.
Yeah, okay, excellent. So the only thing was the 12.4, we just had a funny little, we were going to make a clarification on that training component.
Again, I had a tick on 12.4, but that we would just include that extra information in response to the submitter.
Yeah, brilliant. So rolling on then to 19.1, unchanged, as is 21.5, 22.1, 22.4, 22.5, 22.6, and I think that went right to the end, except for the comment on the final one. That's right, which you've put in there. Thank you very much, including the comment about the Brian Perry Trust, bringing things to the district. Excellent. And I think that's something that reflects our discussions. I'm comfortable with that. Now, it is now 11:30. Did we want to push on into the next category, or did we want to take an early lunch break? I'm entirely in your hands, people.
I'll push on.
Push on, okay.
I mean, lunchtime's at 12, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, chronologically, the next one's community funding. So let's rip into it. The first cab off the rank there is the St Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Te Awamutu. Obviously, Mr Miller submitted to us today in person, and I assume that this will be one that we'll defer the actual decision on until the 9th of June, but we nevertheless will have the discussion today. Would somebody like to kick me off?
Susan.
Jim.
Yeah. In terms of this proposal, obviously it's huge, and I would suspect even if the council approved the $1 million, unfortunately for this project, I don't know whether the other funding would be forthcoming if they've only got 800,000 sitting there at the moment. But the question I had, and probably from the finance team, is there some other way, if we think that it is, and I think it is a worthwhile project, whether we could guarantee a loan, for argument's sake, of the $1 million, and what would the costs with our interest rates, what's over a 30-year period, what are the repayments likely to be, and that would give them some, I suppose, strength in going to the other funding agencies, knowing that that there was that the loan capability there that they would need to pay back, but at least they would be able to get their facility built. And I certainly think it'll get a lot of use, so maybe repaying a loan might not be such a bad option for them. At least it gives them some guarantee, but I suspect that the other community fundraising is going to be a real tall ask in this climate.
Did you have a comment there? Oh no.
Who?
Hazel.
Well, yes. I think in the overall presentation of the people that have put in for community funding is going back to now the time is right for a review of how all of our community groups function. I'm aware of groups that pop up when there's actually they should have actually associated themselves with something that's already working, and I think that you know, this leads me off to Debbie's need for community workers. But I think if we can actually put together a discussion. We can get all these groups functioning together and then hand out funding, because it sounds to me like St Andrew's Presbyterian, the Te Awamutu plan, could actually provide a home for something like this to happen. And oh, sorry about that. I thought this phone was switched off. And, you know, I've been looking at this for quite some time about how we can actually have a connection and a concerted effort to bring our socio-economic problems within the community together so that we can present them in a sensible way and make headway. Because when you've got each little group doing its thing, it doesn't work. And I think I'm supporting this. I'm supporting, you know, I think there's got to be merit in this, but I like what Jim has said. Anyway, that's just my overall comment that's going to apply to all of this.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Hazel. I think at first glance, this is obviously a request for $1 million towards their project, and that's probably where we should focus our discussions at this point. Yes. But your points are well made. There needs to be cooperation in that space to be effective, for sure. But do we have somebody else who has an opinion? Claire, or are you just Claire?
Yeah. So, look, I think it's a really worthwhile project. I mean, I was worried about the request for $1 million grant at this time. You know, I think we've all got to be realistic. But on the other hand, yeah, the proposal makes a lot of sense. And I think if there was a way to support it, then, yeah, I'd be in favour of it. I mean, obviously, I am really focused on keeping rates rises, within a certain scope. It really does depend on the final look of the annual plan. But I think, you know, it ticks a lot of boxes for meeting a lot of needs, and it's in a really good position. And I think they've got a good track record of quite extensive community group involvement in the stuff they already do and all stuff like that. But with that proviso that, it's not really the best time of the of our cycle to be asking for money. I have had a bit of feedback from funders, like because I have participated in some funding webinars in the last few weeks, and what I understand is actually Trust Waikato do feel they will be able to meet the usual funding pool requirements, but lotteries have signalled that they may well be reduced. So that, I don't know if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Andrew, you had your hand up, and then Lou, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Susan. Look, I think we all think the project's probably got merits, but to put another $1 million into an annual plan is just not what council can do. I just don't see. We certainly can't make a grant of $1 million. It's just not. I mean, that's the kind of sum that has to go into a long-term plan and be considered in that way. If there is some way of constructing a loan, possibly we could look at it, but really, I can't support this just as it stands.
Quickly, Lou, and then Ken.
All right, I won't take very long. Thank you for you, Chair, Madam Chair. Just simply the fact that if we borrow or they have a loan, they won't have the equity for them to actually borrow any further. So it'll make it very difficult for them to actually fundraise further. It's quite difficult when you have not a large amount of equity in a project like this. It has great merit to the current district, has great merit to the town. And I think that, it could be utilised very, very well. I wonder a little bit, as Mayor Jim said earlier, whether they would have the ability to raise the existing or the rest of the amount in the current climate and economic climate. And as I said, I agree with Andrew. I can't see us having that sum to give them that equity that they would need to further borrow.
Thank you, Lou. Ken, did you have some comments to make?
Yes. So look, I was just picking up on his worship's comment in terms of could we guarantee a loan? So yes, we certainly do have a community organisation and sporting organisation loan guarantee policy. Yeah, there are criteria around that, and actually I think that there might be an upper level cap as well, and $1 million would probably be really pushing the boundaries in regard to that. Yeah, I'd have to jump onto Citrix to actually locate that policy. I don't have it on hand, but look, certainly if they qualified under that policy, that's what that's about, and that certainly helps an organisation that perhaps doesn't have good equity or assets to secure against, because of course they're falling back. Or the bank security is obviously the council guarantee. So so we've done that for multiple community organisations over many years, and like I say, if they fit those criteria, and we'll perhaps come back with what those criteria are, and we could probably do that certainly after lunch today. Then we could certainly consider that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, Roger. The reason I asked that was, and obviously MEIT is the biggest one I've ever known council guarantee, which was for that $1 million. So, so the possibility is there, but I'm with Andrew. If it was coming down today to make a decision for $1 million grant, and that was going on the rates, there's no way that I think the council could even contemplate that in the current climate. But providing an opportunity for them to go out with some more surety to other funders, that was the only reason I suggested a loan or guarantee proposition might be the way around it for them.
Mm.
Yeah, thinking laterally. Roger, did you have comments?
Yep, can you hear me? Good.
Yeah.
Yes, I certainly support Mayor Jim's comments there. I think it sounds like a tremendous project for TA, but similarly, I don't think we could consider $1 million grant on rates. But if there was a way in which we could guarantee the loan and enable them to go on to the next stage, I mean, it would also be dependent upon other agencies coming in and supporting them. So even if we guaranteed the loan, there's no surety that in fact it would go on to that next stage. But I think it's something that would be worthwhile investigating, because obviously it would be a tremendous facility for the town. So yeah, against a grant, but certainly for looking at opportunities to support that organisation in a loan guarantee. Thank you.
Liz.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. So I know that they're asking for $1 million, but I'd be pretty confident they'd happily settle on something less. I'm just wondering if we really ought to consider a smaller grant at this point, and then encourage them to come back in subsequent years and work through the LTP. This is a very organised group. They've done a heck of a lot to date, and without some kind of council assistance, I think it would feel like we simply weren't supportive of it. So agree that a guaranteeing a loan would be a really good idea, but I still think we can probably assist them with some dollars, but to a far less degree than the $1 million that they're requesting.
Yeah, it's really poor timing for them, isn't it? And not that they had any control over that, and it's certainly a project with huge merit. There's no two ways about it. But just how we can assist and what that means in terms of our financial position as well, that we really have to be weighing up, don't we? So Claire.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the other request that we're going to be dealing with shortly, the Cambridge Community House. So I don't want to blur the two things, but you know, it might be that a $50,000 sort of gift to this project may work within our we're looking at all our options here.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Claire, you had a comment, and then Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liz's approach is something that I'd be interested in exploring. I wanted to make the point that I think it's important for us as a council to demonstrate support for the project, because they made a point in the submission that the council support is needed for the other funders to seriously consider it. So yeah, I'm pretty keen to see some way that we can demonstrate some solid support. And someone commented on about the need, how well would they fundraise the shortfall from their grants and things. And they do mention that they've got some land to sell, and there was no mention that they are seeking other loans. I think it was more pledges from parishioners and locals, I think. But yeah, it wasn't a definitive list, but I think they have got quite a well-planned strategy, reflected in the quality of the proposal.
Yeah. Thanks, Claire. Do I have any other comments from anyone? Oh, that's right, Mike.
Yeah, maybe just, I guess we're discussing this now with a recommendation not through to June. So I guess my thoughts are just picking up on the comments that have been talked about. Liz's comment about a grant of a smaller denomination, and we're going to consider one in Cambridge soon. Also, the loan concept that Jim's brought up and Andrew supported, and maybe I'm just thinking, Ken, your team might be able to get with them, because maybe something along the lines of a combination of both of those in terms of COVID is going to be around and the impact for quite some time. And I guess a loan, the problem with a loan, of course, is you have to start paying it back. But maybe if a grant could be, if by chance we decided to give them a grant of X amount of dollars, that grant with the finance team working with them could actually pay back that initial capital and interest for the first year or something, to sort of give them a little bit of breathing space to get going. So I definitely see some concepts where we can help these people. I mean, the community house in Cambridge, we can see the good it does because it's sort of a one-stop shop, and the fingers go out, and you can definitely see for Te Awamutu that this would become the same sort of thing potentially. So yeah, look, I think everything that's been talked about, there's some good initiatives here, and I'm sure something can be put together for these folk.
Yeah, look, well put, Mike. I totally agree with you. Andrew, were you waving your hands around, or you're just clicking a pen?
Yeah, sort of a bit of both, really. Yeah, I don't see this as being analogous with the Cambridge Community House particularly. I mean, basically, this is a church, and yes, I think they would have they're community minded and would have a good impact on Te Awamutu. But I mean, I would love to have something like Cambridge Community House in Te Awamutu, not something that's attached to a church. And the building's not designed with that. When I looked at the floor plan, at the building plan, there's a hub and there's a this and that and whatever, but it's not a dedicated space to administer to the community. Yeah, I applaud them, and I think they do good work, but yeah, I'd be happy to explore ways to help them, but I don't see it really as being part of council particularly.
Hazel.
Well, Andrew, I don't agree, because but they have invited me to go down and discuss with them, because we need a better community social services house than we've got at the moment, which is nothing. We've got our health and welfare group. We haven't got a place where we can actually progress. The fact that it's a church is a great place to be. That's got nothing, the fact that it's a church building's got nothing to do with what we need to do there. And I think that, so I plan to go and have a chat to them, because we've been longing for this for a long time. And the fact that, and Cambridge's is up and running so magnificently, while we have been skating around looking for a home to be, and I think the church will embrace it, because it covers all the principles of Christianity. So, and we're not talking about Christianity here. We're talking about a commodity that we can use to join together all the services in Te Awamutu and make some kind of a difference, and that we're one voice, that we can actually get change to happen.
I'm just going to answer to that, Hazel. That's not the concept that I had understood it was to be. It's a community. It's a community complex with the ability for performing arts in meeting rooms that might be able to be used by community groups, but it's not really a community social services hub. Or have I got that wrong?
No, you haven't. No, you haven't, because they hadn't even considered the option that I discussed with them. So, I like Jim's idea, liking everybody's idea that we actually help them get ahead. But I'm going to go and have a wee chat to them, and it might well be that's not going to be it. But I'd like to think that we could at long last be looking at some place where we can actually function.
So Claire and then Jim.
Yeah, in the detail of the proposal, they said they definitely are aiming to provide social services. They said they talked to what the need was with people active in the community and what was needed. And so they've specifically provided counselling rooms of a particular size and also a whānau room and things like that. And I think that's why they've got that hub next to the kitchen and things like that. So I think it's in their plan, definitely, Hazel. I'm hearing what people are saying, obviously. Yeah, I just think there was some way that we could assist them through a loan, or as Mike has said, helping them out with a small grant in the same way that Liz here. I mean, I'd be open to that, always conscious of the overall rate rises that we're going to be imposing. That's all.
It's clear. Jim.
Oh, through you, Susan. Claire did cover off a point that I was going to make. There are dedicated counselling rooms in the plans that I saw anyway originally. So I suppose my idea of the loan was that if we have got a facility, and look, it's way grander than the Cambridge Community House, but people using that facility should be prepared to pay a rental for that space, whether it be dance lessons or counselling services. So there should be a business plan, because this is being built on private land. It's not going to be council owned, although it's church land. That they should be able to come up with a business plan that actually shows what revenue that they are planning to make on an annual basis from leasing out those spaces, and then the various counselling groups or the dance groups or weddings or whatever else is held there should be paying towards those costs, and that can go to paying down a loan. But I can't support just a grant in the circumstances that we're in at the present time. But if there was a good business case, then I fully support it.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Jim. Mike.
Yeah, just to, I guess not totally agree with what Jim's just said, but the concept of, I guess when you start up a new business, the problem is that, that first year, you often need some support. So I totally agree with the business plan that Jim's talking about. And that's where I think Ken could work with the team and bring us back some more information. Hazel work with them too, and whoever else, in terms of exactly what this complex can offer the community of Te Awamutu and its surrounds. And then that grant, we could consider a figure then that could cover off maybe the interest and the principal on any loan that we decided to give them, whatever the amount that would be. And then they could factor that in. It buys them a bit of time, as I think Claire stated. It doesn't state anywhere else that they're actually going to apply for loans or anything. No, sorry, I think it was Lou stated. So I think there's some possibilities here without costing the ratepayer much money at all. And I totally pick up on it.
Yeah.
Ken.
So through the chair and in response to to Mike, look, certainly our community loans loan guarantee policy requires the outside entity, the community organisation, in this case the church, to demonstrate that they're able to service the borrowings that they require. And clearly, I mean, as Mike did say, yeah, this would be quite a different scenario for the church. They've asked for $1 million grant. Obviously, obviously that comes at no cost to them. If it's a loan, it does come at considerable servicing costs. So so look, they would have to convince us of their ability to service. And I guess what that would look like is, we'd be happy to have some conversations with them. Look at their cash flows. We'd have to do that anyway. So yeah, no, we could certainly do that. I just don't know what other sources of income, obviously they've got in terms of their ability to service a loan.
Roger, then Graham.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Ken, any idea what the cost of the interest on a $1 million loan would be approximately to the organisation? To them?
Yeah, so look, actually, I'm not sure if Deborah, I think you are still there. I know Deborah did sort of indicate that well, actually, just translating your figures, because I have no idea what sort of interest rate a bank would require. Interest rates are obviously quite low at the moment. Maybe if it was 4.5%, I don't know if that's backed up by a council guarantee. I just looking at your figures here, Deborah, that could be something like $150,000 a year to service $1 million at 4.5%. But I'm not sure if you've got any further comment there. Good, because this is on the basis that they'd be paying an interest rate offered by the bank.
Give me one moment, please. Be somewhere around 62,000 for interest and repayments.
Oh, it's 62,000?
Yep.
For 1 million at something like 4.5%?
Yes.
Okay.
For interest and repayment.
Okay.
On a 30-year loan.
Right. Okay. But yeah, but look, there's some really crude assumptions here, because like I say, I have no idea what interest rate a bank would charge, or if they'd be prepared to have that borrowing over 30 years. This would require the church talking to their bank and determining that.
Susan,
thank you.
I just wondered, all the talk, we've got a fortnight before we get to the 9th of June. Is it possible to go back to them and see if they've got a business case with some actual figures, what their thinking is, see what they can service or can't service? Because I think if things are damn tight, I mean, it's just out of the question to give them $1 million. It's just ratepayers at Canis.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Roger. And also see if the loan concept is of interest to them. It may not be. And if it's not, then it makes our decision quite simple.
Okay, are we comfortable with that course of action? Can we undertake that course of action, Kirsty?
Could we?
Madam Chair, just you're aware of the amount of work that's been done to collate the financials to be able to prepare a revised draft annual plan to present to SPMP on the 9th of June. So we actually are working to have that document and report completed by the end of this week. So we are requiring some guidance from you, and it may be that, yeah, as we said, that if there is a level of discomfort, or you're not in a position to make a decision within the context of this meeting, that we look at what further information we can make available to elected members to ensure that you are able to provide staff with some guidance and direction. It may be that we take a break and have a touch point with you outside of this forum.
Yeah. Okay, I think, are we happy with that? I think that's probably sensible. I think there's obviously, I think we have to help them some way, but how that looks and what that means is quite a different, is how, how we're going to land on a solution that is palatable. So I think that would be helpful. I understand that Sam can create a breakout room, which sounds terribly exciting. And and so do you propose that we adjourn for a short time and I catch up with you, Kirsty, and the staff? Or what does that look like? Everybody needs a break.
Right.
Yes, Susan, I suppose just on Kirsty's comments, and I can understand their concern that we're going to change the numbers and have a whole lot of recalculations and things that are being planned. But at the moment, we're talking about, well, I was anyway, in terms of the loan, that wasn't costing us anything, and we weren't going to have to vary our 10-year, our annual plan, I should say. If we give a grant, then obviously that will change the numbers. But so, Kirsty, it was a question to you really, is your request that if we are contemplating a grant of any size, that we should indicate how big that is now, so that you can look at the numbers?
Kirsty, you have to unmute.
Apologies, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mayor Jim, we would be needing some guide or seeking some guidance from elected members as to a quantum and also a potential funding source, whether you were looking at having council staff utilise, for example, an arbitrage fund or rates funding. We would be seeking some guidance from you in that respect.
So through the chair, I wonder if an initial starting point, and amongst the team, we might just have to talk about who's best got capacity here. I wonder if we ring Mr. Miller, I think it was, Ray Miller, and just talk to him about you know, a loan guarantee and whether that would work for them at all. So yeah, I mean, I guess you know, that would be a fairly simple conversation in the first instance. I guess yeah, you know, if there is interest there, it would then, the onus would be on him to have a chat to the bank in terms of, you know, what does that look like financially. But I should imagine that we could probably at least have that initial conversation pretty quickly.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, just quickly, Ken, and my recollection is that our policy on guarantees is only for 10 years as well.
Yes, I believe you are correct there. So I think it has an upper limit in terms of quantum, and yes, you are correct. It did have a limit of 10 years. I mean, it is a policy of council, and in fact, it's not a statutory type policy. So council in certain circumstances could vary that. But the natural course of that policy is 10 years. Yes, you are correct, Jim.
Susan, there was a question about a quantum if we were going to give a grant, and like taking Mike's suggestion, like a starting point might be, you know, a likely figure that would cover the first 12 months for interest and principal repayments of the loan or something. I thought that was a good approach, because I know what it's like when you've got a big project and trying to fund it all, and if you knew you didn't have to find that for the first year, I think that would be quite good to, as a starting point.
So that first year was 62,000, yeah?
Yeah, well, that was at 4.5%. I mean, I did have a look online at what mortgage rates are. They're actually below that. So I'm thinking around 50,000 might be in the ballpark.
Yeah. Mike, you had your hand up.
Oh, well, I mean, the 10-year thing changes things significantly. Absolutely significantly. I mean, if at 4.19%, you're then looking at $10,000 a month of principal and interest over 10 years. So it does, look, to me, it seems like there's a whole lot of balls in the air here, and how the hell can we make a decision in the next 1.5? This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, staff, but my point of view is we need to buy some time here and do some decent due diligence on this, and not rush it. You know, there's a whole bunch of ideas here, and whether a subcommittees formed through part of us or whatever, but this is not a decision to make between now and lunch or just after it.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Mike. Andrew.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Mike. You know, this is a significant ask that we're being asked for. And while I totally agree with some of the things you say, Hazel, and for instance, I would, like I said before, I'd love to have something like Cambridge Community House operating in Te Awamutu, but we have no idea at this point whether this could fulfill that function or not. We have to do a lot more. We need a lot more. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that, and Gary's got his hand.
Gary, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. look, as long as the committee gives the staff a clear steer, and essentially what I'd suggest that steer is that staff be directed to work with the church to see how we might be able to assist, but insofar as the annual plan is concerned, we're not intending to have any impact on the rate in order to assist this project. Now that still allows us to leave the door open for things like, say, a grant from the arbitrage fund. You still have some tools in your kit, but critically what the staff need is a steer in relation to impact on rate. And if we draw the line there, then that I think will be a good steer for staff at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, good. That seems pretty sensible.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Roger, lots of heads are nodding profusely on my screen, so that's positive. Okay, so can I take it that we're happy with that course of action, and that is pretty much reflected, therefore, that the recommendations there are appropriate in the circumstances, that the council considers this request within the budget of the constraints of the annual plan, as Gary just indicated, and that we acknowledge the submission. In the background, of course, we direct staff to assist with the church in terms of trying to help them getting this thing off the ground. Then I think that's probably the best we can do right now.
Exactly, and I think that, and I'd like Liz to come with me, that we actually go and develop the concept of the wider use that we propose to have centralised there, if that's the case. And then we'd also really have to talk to a little bit to the Health and Welfare Committee as well, because currently we sit at Kāinga Araha with our knees up under our chins in a very small room. So I agree with Andrew that it's a shame that we need a quick decision here, and I agree with the things that you're saying, Andrew. But I'm going to go for that, and it won't be tomorrow, but it'll take a little bit of time now to put that whole business plan together and allow them to see that the community is behind them.
Thanks, Hazel. So we're happy with that one. Do we want to move on with the next community funding, or I see it's 12:10? Do we want to have a break for lunch and come back with renewed vigour for the remaining application under that community funding section, or do you want to address the Cambridge? You want to have a break?
So this is Poto. I just wanted to last comment about the a combined sort of social services based at the St Andrews proposed building. I think the beauty of the Cambridge community shared services or social services is that it is completely neutral, and it's run by a community service. It's not run by a church as such. The churches come together to support their kaupapa. From an iwi perspective, going to a church all the time, it does have some connotations on it. So there's just that one to bear in mind, Hazel, but perhaps you may include some of the Ngāi Tōpū Waipa members in that discussion as well to get their perspective on it.
Yes, I had that in mind, Poto, because I think you can take the church connotation out of this, because it's not the church that we're going to be going into, it's the building attached to the church that we're going to.
Okay, I think we've discussed that one fairly thoroughly. Thank you, Poto, for your comments.
Thank you.
And I think it's probably time we had a bit of a break. It's 12:10. How about we come back in half an hour? Are we happy with that, or do people want longer?
Yep.
No.
Half an hour's fine.
Half an hour's fine. Okay, so that takes us to 12:40. Fantastic.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So I think the plan is just to disconnect your videos, stop videos.
Okay.